Welcome back to Only Talk Sports, and tonight we have the Champions Classic 2023 live reaction between the number 17 Kentucky Wildcats and the number 1 Kansas Jayhawks. This should be a blast. We already saw the Duke Blue Devils knock off the Michigan State Spartans, but we've got the second matchup of the two games between Kentucky and Kansas. It's just tipped off, and Kansas, they've got the basketball first. Both these teams have revamped rosters. Kevin McCullough, though, he is not a new player. He is transferred from Texas Tech a couple years ago to the Kansas Jayhawks. He decided to come back. He did not go to the NBA. He just missed the first shot of the game for the Kansas Jayhawks because they won the tip with Hunter Dickinson down low. The transfer from the Michigan Wolverines, he was able to get the tip. Now on the other end, Justin Edwards, he misses a three for Kentucky, so it's still 0-0. Might be a bit of a slow start because you talk about the first game between Duke and Michigan State. Both teams couldn't really get in a flow. They were struggling early, but not right there. The Kansas Jayhawks banging a three was DeJuan Harris, who has not hit a lot of threes early on in the season for Kansas. He's been mostly a facilitator, but he just showed his offense right there with a big shot. 3-0 Kansas, Kentucky. On the other end, they could not respond. And Hunter Dickinson with the board. Now, it's going to be a problem for Kentucky because Aaron Bradshaw, their star center, is out. And then you talk about Ugonna Yensu. He's out as well. So it's going to be interesting to see if the Kansas Jayhawks can be able to man the paint well without their two top guys down low. Kansas scores again. And that's KJ Adams this time, the underrated forward for the Jayhawks. He had a good season last year at 13 points per game and 5 boards, but Bill Self wanted to up the ante in the center position with Hunter Dickinson, and it looks to be working so far. Kentucky misses another shot. It's still 5-0 Kansas. Dickinson with the ball. Over to McCullough. To DeJuan Harris. Man, Kansas is moving the basketball very well. KJ Adams out to Hunter Dickinson at the top of the key, and he's averaging 19 points and 8 boards to start the year for the Jayhawks. DeJuan Harris drove in the lane, and right there, they're going to call the ball out of bounds, but it's off of Kentucky. So it's still 5-0 Kansas. The Jayhawks have gotten a couple shots to fall, playing pretty good basketball at the start of this game, and we're going to have to see if the Kentucky Wildcats can respond with that freshman talent. This is their first big game, and they're not completely healthy as well. Kansas has a lot more experience. DeJuan Harris, he missed a floater, but Hunter Dickinson picks up the slack, and he gets the shot to fall on the putback, and it's 7-0. Kansas with the lead. Will Calipari take an early timeout? I don't think that he will, because normally what he does is he lets his team play through mistakes until he has to call a timeout. So he's not doing it right now. Top of the key. Kentucky with the basketball. And they turn it over again. KJ Adams up the floor. Elmarco Jackson's foul. So Kansas with a ridiculously hot start. They're playing great basketball, and that experience is showing itself right now. You can just tell that Kentucky is not ready for this big stage. They got a lot of things to work on, and I'm sure that they will, because with a Calipari coach team, they probably will be able to finally get their groove and start playing better basketball as the season goes along. But it's going to be very tough. That's why Kansas was favored in this game by 6.5 points. Because of the fact that Kansas has that experience. And Bill Self, a lot of people argue that Bill Self has been coaching at the top of his game by far the last couple years. He has been doing a great job. They were able to win a national championship in 2022. They didn't win it all last year, but still, they played good basketball. And you look at this year, starting out the season well, and he's bringing in a bunch of transfers. Tons of guys, a bunch of high school recruits. They've got a loaded roster, so much so that Zuby Ejiofor had to transfer out. Other guys like MJ Rice transferred out. And then Mackenzie Mbako, he ended up going to Indiana instead of Kansas. He was down to those two schools, and Kansas did not land him because of the fact that their roster was so loaded. So definitely Kansas is in great shape. Adu Thero on the other end, though, for Kentucky in the corner is able to knock down a three. It wasn't pretty. It rolled around on the rim, but it went in, and that's all that matters for the Kentucky Wildcats. And they do get a stop on the other end. The Kansas Jayhawks finally are going a little cold. Kentucky down the floor, and I think they do call a foul on the floor on the Kansas Jayhawks. But right now, you can definitely tell the way Kentucky is playing, they look a bit ragged, even though they were able to knock down that shot. by Adu Thero. Other than that, it's been a struggle for sure trying to get points. They can't get in the paint with Hunter Dickinson down there. And on the offensive end for Kansas, they have the inside game going. They have the outside game going with threes. And now they just turn Kentucky over down the floor. You've got DeJuan Harris. He almost traveled, but he got to KJ Adams, back to Harris, out to McCullough, inside of Hunter Dickinson. And Hunter Dickinson for two. It's 11-3 Kansas. What a start for the Jayhawks. Kentucky struggling. Dickinson's got 4 points, and every single time Kentucky misses a shot, they can't get the offensive rebound because of the fact Kansas is manning the paint very well with KJ Adams and Hunter Dickinson. They can't get the boards. And then you have Antonio Reeves, the Illinois State transfer from 2 years ago for Kentucky. He tries to shoot a three, and it's not working. It just is not happening right there. On the other end, Kansas with the ball. Elmarco Jackson for two, the star freshman for the Jayhawks at guard. He can't get the shot to fall, but that was a really good-looking mid-range shot. On the other end, Justin Edwards for Kentucky drives into the lane, but he is not able to get that shot to fall, and I think they called a foul on the floor. So no shots there. But, man, it is not looking good for Kentucky with the way that they're playing. It's 11-3 Kansas, and I kind of expected this. I expected Kansas to start this game fairly strong because of their experience. So we'll have to see how Kentucky responds. Definitely this game is not over by any means. There is a lot to go, but this game is starting the way I expected it to. Kansas just has length, especially with Aaron Bradshaw and Ugano Yensu out for Kentucky. If they had those guys, then I do believe that the height advantage would be fairly similar, and both teams would be able to really battle each other on the glass. But with Hunter Dickinson down there, KJ Adams, it's going to be a lot harder for Kentucky to do that. So they're going to have to make a bigger emphasis to be able to hit their threes, and they're going to have to make a bigger emphasis on not turning the basketball over, something that's not working right now for Kentucky. Their freshmen are making mistakes. They're turning it over, and that's turning into easy buckets for Kansas, and that's something they cannot have. So we'll see if John Calipari out of this timeout can get some things rolling for the Wildcats. Stephen Cherry is here. Really appreciate you for stopping by. And to answer your question, when you mentioned about winning with Ohio State with the CFP ranking, Stephen, I do believe, that Ohio State has a case still to be number one. But when you look at their wins over Penn State, and they were able to beat Notre Dame, both of those were really close, especially the Notre Dame one at the end. And you talk about the fact that those teams have lost a couple games. It kind of diminishes those wins. Georgia just picked up the win over Missouri, and they just blew out Ole Miss, two teams that are ranked higher right now than Notre Dame is in the rankings, and somewhat with Penn State as well. That's why they passed them, but I understand your point of view, Stephen. Definitely Ohio State is a case, but I get why Georgia is number one right now, but it could have gone either way. But this game right here, there's no question who the number one team is in college basketball right now is, and that's Kansas. Until they lose, they're going to stay number one. And I know why they started out the year number one, because when you look at what Bill Self acquired in the offseason, getting Nick Timberlake from Towson, Hunter Dickinson from Michigan, and then you brought in Elmarco Jackson as a freshman, and you got DeJuan Harris, Kevin McCullough, and KJ Adams back. It's a loaded roster. And then you talk about what Bill Self is doing at Kansas, winning all of those games the last few years, winning that title in 2022. There's just really no question that Kansas was going to be number one. Now, Kentucky, a lot of people were fluctuating on them where they should be ranked to start the year in college basketball. Some people had them in the top 12. Other people had them barely in the top 25 because they have a lot of freshmen. But other than that, outside of those talented freshmen, all they have is Antonio Reeves, and then they also brought in Trey Mitchell from West Virginia after with Bob Huggins and all that happened in the offseason. West Virginia lost a couple of their players. Trey Mitchell entered the portal again, and he went to the Kentucky Wildcats. Outside of those two guys, Kentucky does not have a lot of experience. I mean, Antonio Reeves and Trey Mitchell are good guys to have, but everyone else is young. And plus, with Kentucky not being healthy, Aaron Bradshaw, Ugano Yensu out in this game, we'll have to see if Kentucky can hang. They shoot a three in the corner. Jordan Burks, a late addition to the Kentucky Wildcats roster in the offseason. He was a four-star recruit that Kentucky picked up late. He misses a three right there. So, again, the Wildcats' three-point shots are not falling. Something they've struggled with the last few seasons. Kentucky has not shot the basketball as well since, the Jamal Murray, Malik Monk seasons. Just have not done as well. And then you look at Kansas on the other end. Kansas goes down to their bread and butter, gets it to Hunter Dickinson on the block, and there's a foul. And they brought in Nick Timberlake, the Towson transfer. He's a good shooter. all around a solid basketball player, has experience as well. Just another guy that Bill Self, when you talk about bringing him in, you're not really expecting, a guy like that to transfer up from Towson to Kansas. But he was really good at Towson, so it makes sense for Bill Self to add him. And he's bringing him off the bench, so he's not even starting. So that type of experience to have coming off the bench, you can't ask for much more than that. That's why Kansas has such a great-looking roster. We'll see how it translates in this game right here. Kentucky down the floor, they miss a layup. You can see the talent from Kentucky. DJ Wagner going down the floor, but he can't get the shot to fall. DeJuan Harris, what a pass to Jordan Furphy right there. He's not able to hit the shot. He's another guy that Kansas has. That's a freshman. It's playing better than expected. Down low, Kentucky, I think they got a 2-and-1. That might have been Trey Mitchell right there. Trey Mitchell, the West Virginia transfer, again, a very experienced veteran player, a guy that should hopefully for Kentucky be able to show them, the veteran leadership of being a college basketball player, the ins and outs, how to play the game on and off the floor. And Trey Mitchell hitting that shot right there kind of settles everything down. Kentucky's not been able to hit shots. You got to get in the paint, take that contact from Hunter Dickinson. Really good play by Trey Mitchell. And he hits the free throw to boot, so it's 11-6. Kansas has a 5-point lead. 14:30 to go in the first. Kansas moving the ball really well to start this game. Timberlake with the ball in the mid-range, and his shot is in and out. Good look for Timberlake. Couldn't get it to fall, and Kentucky has a shot to cut this to a one-possession game down the floor. Shot is off the mark, but Trey Mitchell on the glass doing a good job. Somehow getting that ball over Dickinson. Mitchell's floater is off the mark. If he could have hit that, it would have cut it to a one-score game. Down the floor, Jordan Furphy, he can't hold on to the ball. Freshman mistake from him. And then on the other end, Robert Dillingham getting a pass from DJ Wagner, another one of those star freshmen for Kentucky. Rob Dillingham, he's able to get the layup, and just like that, it's a 3-point game. See Kentucky responding with that talent. On the other end, Timberlake misses again. Dickinson gets the board, but then Kentucky ends up with the turnover. Down the floor, Kentucky all the way to the rim, almost loses the basketball, but they get it back. What a block by Jordan Furphy down low by Kansas. What a play. It looked like Kentucky had an easy deuce there, but it did not happen. That's a really good block. And Kansas showing off that talent as well. 11-8, 13:20 to go in the first quarter. DeJuan Harris settling things down at the top of the key. Things have gotten a bit crazy. Dickinson going down low, and Hunter Dickinson can't get the floater to fall. Kentucky back the other way. Robert Dillingham to Trey Mitchell, top of the key, left, wide open, and Trey Mitchell knocks down the three. And just like that, when things looked a little dire at the beginning of the game, for Kentucky down 11-3, it's tied 11 all. So the experience for Kansas started the game out well, but now the freshman talent and a little bit of Trey Mitchell. Able to get Kentucky back in the game. And now another turnover by the Jayhawks. Kentucky down the floor. Robert Dillingham to the rim. He finds Jordan Burks for three, and Burks three. That's an air ball. Jordan Burks, his first couple of shots have not looked good in this game. Got to appreciate the effort, though. That's a bad shot. And then Jordan Burks, though, steals it on the other end, makes up for it. Dillingham down low to Justin Edwards, and there's a turnover by the Wildcats. This is a frenzy. I can't even keep up with the action. In Kansas on the other end, Kevin McCullough. He gets fouled on his way to the rim. 12-10 to go. And the first quarter, first half, and it's 11-11. First quarter of the game. When you talk about minutes-wise, 40 minutes. We're still got just 32 minutes to go. So not even much basketball has been played, but already 8 minutes have gone by. This game's going by really quick. If things continue at this pace, the game will be over in an hour and a half. It's unbelievable action by Kansas and Kentucky running the floor. Both teams have the roster to do so, and Bill Self and John Calipari definitely telling their players, got to run the floor. Kevin McCullough at the line for the first free throw, and it is up, and it's off the mark, so he misses. That's another key thing. I always say in basketball games, you got to be able to knock down your free throw, especially in big games like this, because you know the other team is capable as well, and if they shoot better at the line than you, it makes it a lot harder to win. So we'll see if Kevin McCullough can knock down the second free throw. It's up, and it is good. So it is 12-11. Kansas reclaims the lead after that 8-0 run by the Wildcats. 12 to go in the first quarter. Kentucky bringing the basketball up the floor. Kentucky trying to drive. You got Reed Sheppard with the ball, an in-state kid from Kentucky, 4-star recruit, borderline 5-star recruit. He's a really good player. Definitely has a lot of potential for Kentucky. Dude Thero trying to dribble around, but great defense by Hunter Dickinson. Now you got Trey Mitchell in the mid-post. He's not able to knock down the shot. Hunter Dickinson with another board. He's probably going to have over 10 or 11 boards in this game. And down the floor to Elmarco Jackson. Kansas scores 14-11. Jayhawks are starting to settle things back down again. Dude Thero, top of the key. Kicks to Antonio Reeves. What a block by KJ Adams. Now DeJuan Harris back the other way. That's an insane block. DeJuan Harris driving in the lane. Kicks to Kevin McCullough. And Kevin McCullough's three is not even close. But Dickinson with another board. He kicks down low to Jackson. Down low to McCullough. 4-2. What a play. All set up by the Hunter Dickinson offensive board. 16-11 Kansas. Insane. Trey Mitchell with the ball at the top of the key. Over to Dude Thero. Glad he didn't take that shot because it probably wouldn't have gone. He was sitting there too long. Good decision to kick it back out. DJ Wagner with the ball. Top of the key. Over to Reeves. Down low to Trey Mitchell. Trey Mitchell double team to Dude Thero to Reed Sheppard in the corner. That's a good three by Reed Sheppard. The in-state 4-star recruit. He's going to be a good player for the Wildcats. I'm pretty sure. That's a really good looking shot. And the Wildcats cut it to 2. Kansas with the basketball. DeJuan Harris kicks over to McCullough. Kansas has been passing the ball better than Kentucky, but both teams a bit turnover prone early. I mean, obviously, it's the first big game for both of these teams. You're going to expect the mistakes. More so for Kentucky being younger. Jackson down low to Dickinson, and it's deflected. That's a really good play by Kentucky. I will admit the Wildcats are doing a good job on defense here. Last couple of possessions, they have tightened up. Trey Mitchell kicks over to Reed Sheppard again, and Reed Sheppard hits another one. 2 for 2 for Sheppard, and the Wildcats are in front. 17-16. What a play there. That is a big shot by the freshman. Down low, Kevin McCullough, 4-2, and a blocking foul. Kentucky tried to draw a charge. It was not happening. Dude Thero, he is looking for the charge. The referees are not going to give it to him. It's 18-17 Kansas. 2 blue bloods on the floor. This is going to be a good one. 9:38 to go in the first quarter. Timeout on the floor. Star World, appreciate you for being here. Steven says John Calipari does less with always having more. A lot of people say that. I mean, you're going to have the scrutiny when you bring in top players year in and year out and you don't go all the way with them, when you don't go to the Final Four and you're not going to national championship games. Kentucky has not been to the Final Four since 2015. Since then, they've had a lot of early exits in the NCAA tournament and a lot of years where they just have not looked as good. Ever since those Jamal Murray teams, the Malik Monk teams, and even way back with the Anthony Davis team, they just do not like the same program. They're a good team. They're always ranked. They're always getting those highly rated players. But this is a very important year for Kentucky. And obviously, health is going to be a factor. Health is definitely going to be a factor. They need to get Aaron Bradshaw back. They need Ugonna Yensu to come back. They need a healthy basketball team. But I do believe that it does show a shift in college basketball from the early 2010s when freshmen like Duke with Kyrie Irving, teams like that, and then you like Jason Tatum, and then you talk about Kentucky with Anthony Davis, Jamal Murray, those type of guys. They were able to win because more players that were really good left. Now you see more players that are really good coming back in college basketball for another year. Their second, third, fourth, and sometimes fifth year of college basketball because a lot of guys got an extra year of eligibility with the 2020 year. So that is why it is harder to win with just freshmen. And you talk about Kentucky when they had Oscar Tshiebwe, some of those guys 2 years ago, it helped, and even last year, but they weren't able to crack the code either because there were still other guys that came back that I guess were just better overall. Tshiebwe, he was good, but he couldn't really shoot, and he could just rebound at a high level and score down low. But Kentucky also hasn't been as good of a three-point shooting team as they used to be. They're really struggling to shoot the basketball. They have not had a lights-out shooter since probably Tyler Hero. So I just think overall, Kentucky has things that they have to face in modern college basketball. With a lot of guys coming back for multiple seasons, there's so much more talent probably in the sport overall and a lot more veteran players. And when they have all freshmen, it makes it tougher to win. And that's why Calipari has Antonio Reeves and Trey Mitchell on the roster. He knows that he has to have some experience to be able to hang with these other teams that basically their whole roster outside of a couple guys maybe being five-star freshmen. The rest of them are usually guys that are fourth-year players, three-year players, and sometimes even fifth-year players because Kansas has tons more experience than Kentucky. And if Kansas wins this game, it's going to be because of that fact, more than likely. Plus the fact Kansas is talented as well. Kansas and Kentucky's talent. Kentucky has more NBA talent on the team, but Kansas has enough of their own, and they have a lot of experience, and that might prove to be the difference if the Jayhawks win, but we'll have to see. So Kansas, they complete the three-point play. It's 19-17 out of the timeout. Down the floor, you've got Kentucky trying to make a play. Jordan Burks is nowhere to go. He's looking for somebody, anybody to throw the ball to. He finds Robert Dillingham. Dillingham to DJ Wagner. He slips. And he shoots the three, and he misses. Once he slipped there, I know why he took the shot because he did get a little bit of space, but that's not a great-looking shot. Even if he hit it, that's a play. You still got to try to work the paint, even though Dickinson, KJ Adams, they make it tough. But still, that's not a great possession from Kentucky. It was broken from the start. DeJuan Harris with the ball to Elmarco Jackson. Now you've got Kevin McCullough, one of the best defenders in college basketball. He goes down into the paint, and there's a foul. He's going to the line. Steven asked, does Purdue finally crack the code? That's a great question. I mean, people have talked about every year, Purdue, are they going to be able to advance in the NCAA tournament? They can win Big Ten games, and they can even win early non-conference games against big opponents. They beat Duke last year. But then when they get to the tournament, they lose to teams like Fairleigh Dickinson. They lose to teams like North Texas and St. Peter's. The last three NCAA tournaments. They cannot advance. And I think a big reason why they cannot advance is just because of the fact that Zach Edey having a big center and then not much else. You got decent guards, but you just don't really have that explosive guard. They had Jaden Ivey that one year, but he didn't have a lot of help surrounding him. It's just tough. The way that they play, especially when they play some of those smaller schools that they're very scrappy and they can run the floor and they're very fast, it just makes it tough for Purdue to win. I mean, you could say it's a fluke when you lose one game or two like that, but Purdue's lost 3 games to small schools. North Texas, Fairleigh Dickinson, St. Peter's, last 3 seasons. They even beat Texas the year that they lost to St. Peter's. That's when they had Jaden Ivey. So it just goes to show they can sometimes beat bigger teams, but when they're playing those small, scrappy teams, they always get them in the NCAA tournament. It's crazy. I don't know if Purdue's going to crack the code, Steven, this year because they're a very similar team yet again. Not much has changed, but you never know. Maybe the matchups will be better. If they get to the tournament and the matchups work well for them, they could very well possibly go further in the tournament. But if they play a team like Fairleigh Dickinson, St. Peter's, that has figured out a way to beat Purdue based off film and the way that they play, then it's going to be another season where they have a good year. Probably ranked in the top 10 all season long and then lose early in the tournament, but we'll have to see. Down the floor, Robert Dillingham showing off that 5-star talent. That's a really good play. In the lane with a floater, that's a really hard shot. And again, that is just talent, pure athleticism. 21-19, DeJuan Harris kicking the ball to Parker Brown, the brother of Christian Brown as well. And he transferred in. It's crazy that he transferred in after his brother is already in the NBA. But then you had DeJuan Harris with it too. That's going to be huge for Kansas. If they can get DeJuan Harris knocking down shots, because he's a great facilitator. He's one of the best passing guards in college basketball. That's why he's on the Bob Cousy Award watch list. Because of that fact alone. A great passer. But he's going to have to be able to shoot the ball and be able to knock some shots in for Kansas to be able to go to that next level, for Kansas to quintessentially become the top team in college basketball, or one of them, because he has to be able to chip in some points. And so far in this game with 5 early points, that makes it easier for him to pass the ball. Because when you have a point guard that is a threat to score, but it's not like his main focus, but he knocks a couple shots down, that makes the defense chin up on him a little bit. We got to guard this guy because he's knocking down shots, and then what happens? You get a pick and roll going down the floor, and you got Dickinson in the paint. DeJuan Harris can kick it to him. You got Kevin McCullough Nick Timberlake on the wing. I mean, there's a lot of options for Kansas, so it's big that DeJuan Harris is hitting a couple of those shots. Steven says Big Ten style of physical play is dated. That's why No Nations is those Flintstones. Yeah, back in 2000 was the last time that the Big Ten won a national championship with Michigan State. Obviously, Indiana won a lot of them, but their last one was in 1987. And there has not been a lot of winning in the Big Ten since. Magic Johnson, Michigan State won it back in 79. But I do agree with you, Steven. The style of play, it just does not equate to success in the modern day against anyone else but themselves. When the Big Ten plays each other, they have success. And some teams like Purdue, in some years like Michigan State, they do it better than everyone else. But then when they finally do play those athletic teams from the Big 12 and the ACC and the SEC, then it all comes crumbling down. They can't have success, and a lot of them lose early in the tournament. Michigan State went further than any Big Ten team last year in the NCAA tournament, and they only made it to the Sweet 16. So no team was even a threat to advance. Purdue obviously lost in the first round. Indiana lost in the round of 32 to Miami. Michigan State lost Sweet 16. So, again, the Big Ten was already eliminated. And they get a lot of teams in. A lot of people have been saying lately that the Big Ten does not deserve to have a lot of teams in the tournament because the resume is good. They went early in the non-conference, and then they win in conference play. And there's usually like 7 or 8 teams with good enough records to make the tournament, good enough resumes, but then most of them are eliminated after the first weekend. So I think based off resume alone, you have to put those teams in, but there is an argument because every time that they make the tournament, they don't advance. So it's just very hard to justify all the teams from the Big Ten making the NCAA tournament when you don't advance. So it's going to be wild to see what happens this year. But we've got a great game. The kickoff of college basketball season. Cannot wait for the 2023-2024 season to commence. It's going to be a lot more of these big events. The Empire Class is coming up with UConn, Indiana, Louisville, and Texas at the end of this weekend. And then you talk about the Maui tournament and also the Battle for Atlanta, some of those big tournaments that happen during Thanksgiving, the Phil Knight Invitational, stuff like that. Those are really cool tournaments with a lot of big teams to showcase. I cannot wait for all of those events to happen. They always are a delight to see. Even though a lot of people are still watching football, I try to watch both for sure. Robert Dillingham, he misses a 3, but Kentucky able to get the offensive board. Justin Edwards. Then he kicks over to Antonio Reeves. It's now over to Robert Dillingham again. Kentucky, though, still struggling in the half court. Justin Edwards for 3. That would have been a bailout on that possession, but he misses the 3 right there. And then Adu Thero, he gets the offensive board again. And I think there's a foul on Kansas. So Kentucky's doing a better job in the last few minutes of getting offensive rebounds. And Dickinson's back in the game now too. And they were able to still get 2 offensive rebounds. That's you. Johnny Furphy for Kansas. He's got a couple fouls, but Bill Self is leaving him in. He almost picked up a 3rd one. He's got to be careful there. He's a freshman, so he's got a lot to learn for sure, but cannot pick up a 3rd foul. And then inside, you've got Adu Thero. He is an improved player for Kentucky from his freshman year. He was a late addition to their last year's class. 3-star recruit, kind of moved up the rankings late. Said he always wanted to play for the Kentucky Wildcats, and John Calipari added him to the roster. Did not provide much last year, but you can tell he is a much improved player. Could be a very important player for the Wildcats this season, especially with how many new faces they have, and he's kind of a veteran. You talk about the fact that he's just a sophomore. That's a veteran in Kentucky's world because they're always full of freshmen, so we'll see how good he does this year. But he cuts it to 2. But on the other end, they fouled Dickinson. That's going to be an issue. Dickinson's probably going to be picking up tons of fouls. He's just so large. And with Kentucky, again, not having Aaron Bradshaw, they just don't have a lot of guys that can guard him. So it's going to be wild to see that matchup as the game goes on. Dickinson with 5 points, and he's already at 8 boards. He's already at 8 rebounds, and we're only 13 minutes in the game. Unbelievable. 25-21. Robert Dillingham trying to shake KJ Adams. He cannot. Really good defense by Adams. Kentucky going around the world. Inside to Trey Mitchell to Jordan Brooks. How did he keep that ball from going out of bounds? And Robert Dillingham cashes in on the three. That possession looked broken for Kentucky. A lot of them have tonight, but somehow they scrapped around and found a way to knock in a big triple. Dillingham with 7 points, his first triple of the night. 25-24. This has been a good first half. On the other end, Kevin McCullough. He misses the floater, and Kentucky can take the lead. Dillingham down the floor all the way to the rim, and there is a foul. That might be on Jordan Furphy, and if it is, that will be his third. So Bill Self will have to take him out. Obviously, not the most important player on the roster in terms of scoring and experience for Kansas, but he has actually been a pretty good freshman so far in their first 2 games against smaller competition. He's been playing pretty well, but he is definitely still a young player, you can tell, and he's struggling against the better competition of the Kentucky Wildcats. They brought back in Nick Timberlake. Definitely a lot of depth for the Jayhawks, so one guy being in foul trouble, especially a young freshman like Furphy, not too big a deal for now. Reeves, top of the key, the experienced player for the Wildcats. He gets it to Trey Mitchell on the block. Trey Mitchell kicking to Burks in the corner to Dillingham, and Dillingham hits another three. Wow, what a shot by Dillingham. He's got 10. And again, that's the thing with the Wildcats. They have a lot of talent. They're young, but they've got a lot of talent. And as long as they're confident, they can beat anybody. But Kansas is going to have to find a way to counter that with their experience. DeJuan Harris, top of the key, kicks over to Kevin McCullough. He thought about the three, but wisely decides to kick it back out. KJ Adams, back to McCullough, down low to Dickinson, and Dickinson for 2. What a play. How did Dickinson get that shot to fall? It looked like he was stuck under the rim, but somehow he was able to go up and under, and he got the shot to fall. Dickinson with 8 points and 8 boards. But Kentucky, it's been a problem for Kansas because Kentucky keeps on knocking down threes, and Dillingham with another one. He's hot. He's got 13. 3 threes in a row. 30-27 Kentucky. Kansas has to guard the three-point line, specifically Dillingham, because Dillingham is hot. DeJuan Harris, though, on the other end, counters with a 3 of his own. 30-30. This game definitely has a lot more offense than the first game had in the first half with Duke and Michigan State. It was a very choppy first half. Both of these teams, they're shooting lights out right now. Robert Dillingham with another shot. Robert Dillingham is unstoppable. He hits another 3. 33-30, 16 points for Dillingham. And on the other end, Kentucky stops Kansas. Wildcats back the other way, and the Wildcats hit another 3. Antonio Reeves, 4:37 to go in the first half, 36-30, timeout Bill Self. Unbelievable. The Kentucky Wildcats, this is the best that they have shot the basketball in a big game, it feels like, in a couple years. Wow. Robert Dillingham showing off his talent and his shooting stroke. And then you've got Antonio Reeves, the experienced player, cashing in on a 3. Sometimes it rubs off on the rest of your team. One guy's hot from 3, you getting some confidence, you get in the lead, and then you knock down a 3 of your own. That's how it works. Sometimes that confidence spreads to the rest of your team. In Kentucky, they are confident. I was not expecting this after they started the game. Down 11-3. It looked like it might be a long night for the Wildcats, but I did say it was early. A lot of time left, but man, they are shooting the ball lights out, and I completely agree with you, Steven. Kentucky is looking like the Golden State Warriors. It's unbelievable. They are shooting an insane percentage from 3. They're like at 45% or something like that. I think 8 of 17 from 3. That is a lot of threes. And Kansas is only at 1. So Kansas is playing more inside ball. A lot of getting it inside the paint to Dickinson and KJ Adams. Bill Self not happy at all whatsoever with the three-point defense. He's telling his team, when a guy gets hot, you got to guard him. And what's crazy is that Dillingham's on the bench. Shocked that Calipari is sitting Dillingham, giving him a break. But 5 straight made threes for Kentucky. And Kansas misses a 3 on the other end. Antonio Reeves over to DJ Wagner to Adu Thero. Back to Reeves for 3, and Reeves misses that one. So if Kentucky had have hit that 3, they would have been up by 9 points. and they would have hit 6 threes in a row, but they could not hit another one. Justin Edwards, though, he got the offensive rebound from the Reeves miss, and he's holding his wrist. He fell to the floor. DeJuan Harris has 2 fouls for Kansas. That's not good. You do not want DeJuan Harris in foul trouble if you are a Kansas fan. But, yeah, it looked like Edwards just kind of fell on his hand a little funny. He might be okay, though. He's still in the game, but he is favoring that wrist. 37-30, he knocks down the first free throw. But what a response by Kentucky. I was not expecting this. This is very impressive by the Wildcats. He does miss the second. Yeah, you can tell Edwards is in pain. Calipari might have to take him out. But he went 1 for 2. 37-30, 7-point lead for the Wildcats. DeJuan Harris, even though he has 2 fouls, still in the game. Bill Self running the risk right there of leaving him in. KJ Adams, though, on the other end for Kansas, knocks down a 2. It's a short little shot right there. Kentucky misses a 3 on the other end, and now Kansas settling down a little bit. Hunter Dickinson with the board. They're only down by 5, not by a lot. Dickinson with 10 boards. He could have 20 rebounds in this game. And Dickinson's 3 almost went in. It was so close to dropping. It hit the front rim, backboard, and almost rolled in, but it did not. But Kansas, they're going to get the ball back after this timeout. It's 37-32. Kentucky with a 5-point lead, but Kansas definitely doing all the dirty work down low, and they're getting to the line a good bit. But they have to stop the Kentucky Wildcats from being able to hit all of these threes. Because if they keep cashing in on them, it's going to be a long night for Kansas. Stephen Cherry says Dickinson looks weird in a Kansas uniform. I agree. I mean, that's basically the common theme, Stephen, with both football and basketball right now. It's just so many guys transferring. I mean, I've seen guys in 3 and 4 different uniforms. You talk about football, obviously the most notorious one was JT Daniels. He went from USC to Georgia to West Virginia to Rice. 4 different schools. I mean, obviously that's an extreme case. Most guys only transfer once, but there's been a lot of double and triple transfers. Keaton Slovis did the same thing. He went from USC to Pitt to BYU in football. And in basketball, there's been a lot of them as well. Definitely several, transfers and to new teams. I mean, Cormac Ryan's the one that comes off the top of my head in basketball. He went from Stanford to Notre Dame, and now he's at North Carolina for his final season of college basketball. So that's crazy in itself, just seeing a guy play for 3 different teams. And it's happening more and more often. And it's probably going to keep happening because of the fact when you talk about, guys that don't get enough playing time and they want to go somewhere else, or maybe NIL's a factor. You never know what it could be. But guys, maybe they just want a new change of scenery, get back closer to home. Whatever it is, transfers are happening all the time. And your roster on a basketball team is not going to look the same the next year. Guys are going to go to the NBA draft. Guys are going to transfer out. Guys are going to transfer in. So it's crazy. Steven says, my basketball Buckeyes look average under Holtman. I'm unimpressed. Yeah, they're not playing great basketball. They lost to Texas A&M, I saw, which Texas A&M is ranked in the top 25 this year and possibly could be having a great year. You never know. With Buzz Williams, it looks like it could possibly be his best team that he's ever had in College Station. But still, a very tough loss for the Buckeyes to suffer on their own floor. It was on their own floor as well, Value City Arena, and they were not able to take advantage of that. They were not able to use that home court advantage and get a top 15 win. So it is what it is. It definitely looks like Ohio State is going to be kind of an average team this year. Probably one of the maybe bottom half teams of the Big Ten. Maybe they could be in the middle, but you never know. They're showing the Empire Classic on there. UConn, Indiana, Texas, Louisville coming up on Sunday. Those should be some good matchups as well. Cannot wait for more basketball. It's been a lot of fun so far to have college basketball back. You got so many sports on right now. NBA, NFL, college basketball, college football. This is the time of year when they're all confluent at the same time. You got every single sport on. It's crazy for sure. And definitely if you are a fan of both sports, it is the best time of year. KJ Adams with the ball for Kansas. They're down by 5. Can the Jayhawks get the momentum back before the half? There's only 3:20 to go in the first. Down by 2 possessions. DeJuan Harris. Down low to KJ Adams, and KJ Adams with the beautiful seal of a Deutero, and he slams it home. 3-point game, 1 possession game. Kansas back in it. Down by 3. KJ Adams with 6 points. He's 3 of 3 from the field. Obviously, all of his points have come in the paint. Kentucky thought about another 3. Dillingham down the floor. Dillingham shots off the mark, and KJ Adams with the board, but they're going to call a foul on Kevin McCullough. He doesn't like the call. But they just called a foul on Kevin McCullough. I guess they said that he pushed out. They're trying to get that rebound, would not allow the Kentucky player to go after the ball. He kind of just, sealed him off. And I guess he sealed him off a bit too hard, which probably 15 years ago wouldn't have been a foul, but a lot of things 15 years ago today are fouls for sure. 15 years ago, they would have been okay. It's a very interesting dynamic. Same thing in football. A Deutero at the line, though, and he hits the first free throw. Really impressed with the Deutero's development. He looks a lot better than he did last year. Was just a reserve player, did not play too much, but he has definitely improved this year, and he knocks down both free throws. It's 39-34. Kentucky back up by 5. The Wildcats are 4 of 5 at the line. Kansas is 8 of 9. So the Jayhawks have gotten to the line a bit more, but Kentucky has hit more threes, which is why they are in front. Elmarko Jackson, top of the key, kicks to Kevin McCullough, and he turns it over. Good play by Deutero to Dillingham. Down the floor, and Dillingham gets the basketball somehow off the rim, just right to a Deutero for the dunk. Unbelievable, and the Wildcats lead by 7. And then a Deutero. He gets the ball, the defensive rebound, and then he falls to the floor and he gets fouled. He spiked the ball a bit. I don't know if they're going to call a technical on that or not, but a Deutero is playing hard. Insane. I was not expecting Kentucky to play this well, especially because Kansas was more impressive in their 2 games to start the year than Kentucky was. Kansas blew out both of their smaller opponents by like 35, 40 points. And then Kentucky only was winning by like 20 to 25. But, man, this is a very impressive performance right now by the Kentucky Wildcats. And now KJ Adams is 2 fouls. Kansas racking up some fouls. And a Deutero knocks down the first free throw. He's playing hard. He wants to win. You can tell he really wants to win. The Wildcats are up by 8. And if they keep up this level of play, they definitely can win this game. It's hard to do it for a full 40, but this first half, after that 11-3 start by Kansas, they've responded. 9-point lead for the Wildcats. But John Calipari's furious. They just got a cheap foul. 80 feet from the bucket. Kansas inbounded the ball, and Robert Dillingham was a little too aggressive there. But that's just a freshman mistake. He's trying to be aggressive, but you have to use your aggression in a positive way and not pick up cheap fouls. Now he's got 2 fouls. That definitely does not help out the Wildcats. John Calipari is very upset. Steven says Kentucky is going to be a problem. Very impressive first half. I agree. If they play like this and they can only get better from here, you would think, and they improve as the season goes along, yes, Kentucky, they might have a bounce back year. I mean, they've got talent. That's the thing. John Calipari always has talent on his roster, but it is about turning that talent into wins and going far in the tournament. And that's something they've struggled with the last couple years. But right now, you would not think that because they're playing really good basketball, up by 8 points. Calipari obviously did not like the foul, but, I mean, you got to appreciate the effort. They're playing really hard. Elmarko Jackson, though, he hit the first, and then he missed the second, but there was a lane violation by Kentucky, and then he knocked down the last free throw attempt that he was able to get another one. So it's 43-36. Again, Kentucky can't start making mistakes. Then you got Antonio Reeves going the other way, driving into the lane, nowhere to go. A Deutero driving in on Hunter Dickinson. Nowhere to go as well. Should have been a travel. Looked like he shuffled his feet, but they didn't call it. But there's a missed shot by Edwards in the corner. Kansas gets it back, but then the Jayhawks throw it away. Bill Self is getting a little upset. You know he's going to have a halftime talk for sure. He is definitely going to be telling his team, we have to do better in the second half if we want to win this game. Kansas with 7 turnovers, and Kentucky, the team with the freshmen, the team with the youth, the guys that have not played in a big game like this yet in their college basketball career, they have 1 turnover in the entire first half. That is impressive. to only have one turnover in the first half. Still has 2 minutes to go, but in 18 minutes of action against one of the most experienced basketball teams in college basketball and one of the oldest in Kansas, you only have one turnover. If Kentucky can keep that up, they're winning this game. But I don't know if they can. I do feel like Kansas is going to get back in their groove and start playing like they did earlier in the game. But I do believe that the Jayhawks need shots to fall because they are relying on the paint. They're trying to shoot a lot of twos, get to the line, and it works. But when Kentucky's hitting all these threes count more than twos. So you either have to guard the threes from Kentucky and stop having it where they hit them, and then Kansas will be able to, be able to counter that with their twos and get back in front, or you have to start hitting threes yourself if Kentucky is going to keep hitting them. So it's going to be interesting. Steven says, "Welp, I got to go to bed. Love your channel, your enthusiasm for sports." Yeah, man, I really appreciate that, Steven. Thanks for stopping by. Really appreciate your comments. Last thing that you did say as well, you fully expect Rick Pitino to turn St. John's around quickly, even though Michigan put it on last night. I do agree with you as well. I was going to talk about that at half, but since you're going to bed, we'll say it real quick. I do agree with you. I believe that Rick Pitino will turn around. He's got some talent, but it's early in the season. A lot of teams have a bad performance or two, and then they can turn around and have a good year. So we'll see. It was a bad performance against Michigan, but Phil Martelli, he's filling in for Juwan Howard. Hopefully Juwan Howard can get healthy and better. He really did put it on St. John's. That was a very good performance by Michigan. So definitely, I think Rick Pitino will have success there and could have a good year, but that was a tough performance for sure. But again, appreciate you for being here, Steven. But definitely, this is a great game. I cannot wait for the second half. And the first half isn't even over. Both teams, last minute, have been running the floor. No one scored again. It's 43-36, but there's been a lot of running the floor. That's what you love to see with teams like this that have a lot of talent and experience. You just love seeing these athletes play. They're just going out there, and they're in their element, running the floor, going up above the rim for throwdowns, knocking down threes. They're having fun out there. And that's what basketball is all about, is having a lot of fun and playing the right way and be able to get wins. Antonio Reeves, though, he was fouled by Kansas, and he's at the line. That's another thing. Both teams are doing good at the line, but Kansas has to have a free throw advantage over Kentucky because Kentucky already has a three-point advantage over Kansas right now. And if Kentucky can start hitting more free throws and get that advantage over Kansas, Kansas isn't really going to have much of an advantage either way. Kansas is 10 of 11 and Kentucky 7 of 8 at the line, but that's not a big enough discrepancy in favor of Kansas for it to make up for Kentucky's three-point advantage. And Reeves knocks down both free throws. Very clutch free throws there. 45-36, 9-point lead for Kentucky. 1:10 to go in the first. And again, what a response by the Wildcats after starting out down 11-3. Dickinson on the block, and Dickinson misses an easy shot. He'll make that 99 out of 100, just couldn't get it to fall. Reeves for three on the other end, and his shot's off the mark, but Adu Thero with the putback jam. Unbelievable play by Adu Thero. Man, he could be a candidate for one of the most improved players in college basketball if he keeps this up from last season. Wow, what a play by Adu Thero. That's probably SportsCenter top 10. And Adu Thero with a board. Wow, he's playing hard. He's got 13 points and 8 boards. Down the floor, DJ Wagner's fouled, and he'll be going to the line. But Adu Thero, he is the first half highlight reel. He's got putback jams. He's skying for boards. It looks like Dennis Rodman out there. Unbelievable. Skying above the rim. That ball had to be like 11 feet in the air. And he just went up and slammed it home. John Calipari is happy for sure. And Adu Thero is one of his least highly ranked recruits. He's one of his lowest rated recruits, and he's outperforming everybody but Dillingham. Dillingham's playing well, and Adu Thero. Everyone else kind of struggling a bit. But it doesn't matter when you've got two guys that are just balling out. And Wagner splits the free throw. So it's 48-36. But then Kentucky gets the offensive board. So they just keep on playing. They keep on attacking. 30 seconds left in the first. They're up by 12. This is an impressive performance by the Wildcats. Kentucky misses a three. Dickinson tries to get the board. I don't know who the foul's on. Dickinson and Adu Thero were going for the ball, and I think they're going to call it on Adu Thero that time. His effort is undeniable. It's insane how hard he's playing. But he was not able to get that ball from Dickinson. Dickinson skied in the air for it, and Adou-Thiero was all the way on his back. Adou-Thiero jumped like 4 feet in the air. Maybe that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but it looked like it. He was over Dickinson's head. It's unbelievable how hard he is playing right now. 20 seconds to go in the first half. It's 48-36. Kentucky in the lead. Dickinson will be at the line. He is a good free throw shooter. And Kansas, they need some momentum before the half. They need some points. So we'll see if Dickinson can knock him in. His first free throw is good. So it's 48-37. Another free throw can make this a 10-point game, which is not ideal for Kansas. You would rather have it below 10. It's much better to be down at half by under 10, but still being down 10 is better than being down by 13, 14 points. So it's a 10-point game. Can Kansas guard the Wildcats on this last possession, going to the halftime locker room down by 10? Dickinson with 10 points, 10 boards. He's playing well, but Kentucky has just been outplaying him, especially Adou-Thiero. Down the floor, Robert Dillingham tried to kick it to Justin Edwards, and it's a turnover. Calipari's not happy. Calipari is shouting at his guys. Don't blame him there. They've been taking care of the ball really well. And Dillingham, it's just a freshman mistake, trying to wrap it around. Just could not get it to Edwards. So it's 48-38, 4.9 seconds left in the first. Can Kansas get another shot to fall and get down by less than 10 at the half? We'll see. DeJuan Harris up the floor. DeJuan Harris driving into the lane, kicks to Dickinson for 3, and his shot's good. Hunter Dickinson with a 3. And that makes it a 7-point game. Remember that shot right there, because Kentucky was up by 12. They were rolling, looking great. And then Dickinson hits 2 free throws and then hits a big 3 to make it 48-41 at the half, which is a much more manageable deficit for Kansas. If Kansas can come back and win this game, that's a big shot right there. And it says Kentucky has 9 3-point field goals in first half, third most in half by Kentucky in the last 10 seasons. That stat right there is why the Kentucky Wildcats have struggled to be a very effective basketball team and go far in the NCAA tournament. They have not been a great 3-point shooting team. And Kentucky, while they're winning this game right now, is 3-point shooting, specifically by Dillingham, and Adou-Thiero's effort. Adou-Thiero's effort has been insane. He's been skying for boards. He has put back dunks. And that's why Kentucky has a 7-point lead. But on the other side of things, Kansas has been able to have Dickinson down low, and he's been dominating on the board. Now, Kentucky did a bit better, to be fair. Kentucky did a bit better rebounding later on in the first half. But Kansas still did a really good job on the glass for the most part. And then Dickinson got that big 3 late, and he kind of started to get going. But I do believe Kansas needs more help around Dickinson. They need guys like Kevin McCullough to step up. Kevin McCullough was very silent. Nick Timberlake, the Towson transfer, they need his shooting. They need other guys like Jordan Furphy. A guy like that, possibly even Zach Clements if they bring him into the game. Elmarco Jackson, some of these other guys, these guys that don't score as much, that don't get as much attention. They need points from them. Because Kentucky, they don't have a lot of balanced scoring. It's mostly Adou-Thiero, Robert Dillingham, but when you got 2 guys playing that well, you don't really need the rest of your team to be doing that much. And I think Trey Mitchell did a good job on the glass late in the first half. He was starting to win some of those rebounding battles with Hunter Dickinson, so that made a difference as well. Really good first half. It shows you how good these two teams are. There's a lot of talent. They're usually always good. But Kentucky's freshman talent, they just out-hustled Kansas, especially after that 11-3 lead. After that, Kentucky dominated the first. We'll see if Kansas, though, can regain it in the second half. It should be a great finish. Jackson is here. Appreciate you for stopping by, Jackson. He says, "What's up, Only Talk Sports Nation?" Really appreciate you for being here, Jackson. Thanks for being here, Steven. Cannot wait for the second half. I'm sure you guys are excited about the second half as well, because this was a great first half. You also got Iowa and Creighton on as well. Iowa's beating Creighton 29-27, and it's at Creighton. Obviously, Creighton lost Arthur Kaluma. and Ryan Nembhard, but they still got Trey Alexander, Ryan Kalkbrenner, Baylor Shireman, so they got some talent still at Creighton. But Kentucky, 48-41 at the half. I thought Kansas would be winning at half. I thought it would be one of those games where Kansas would get up early, and then kind of in the second half, you would have Kentucky kind of fight back and make it close and maybe could get the win. I wasn't expecting Kentucky to do this well. They look really good. And granted, a lot of it was three-point shooting, and three-point shooting can be fleeting because sometimes you can go cold from the outside. Sometimes you start out doing really well from three, and then you can't continue it, and then you struggle in the second half to shoot. So we'll see if Kentucky starts to struggle from the three-point line. That could be a difference maker because they dominated the three-point shooting in the first half. And we'll see if they can shut Dickinson down because Dickinson really got whatever he wanted for the most part. So it's going to be a wild dynamic there. I think Kansas needs to start hitting some shots, jumpers, three-pointers to kind of drag the Kentucky defense out a bit more because they're really sagging a bit, knowing that Kansas wants to get it in the post. But Kentucky, their surprise three-point shooting, how well they've done, is why they are up right now. Jackson says this Kansas-Kentucky matchup is looking pretty close, for sure. I mean, Kansas was favored by 6.5, so it's not like anyone thought this would be a blowout just because Kansas has more experience and, arguably just as much talent as Kentucky does. Maybe not as much NBA talent, but just overall, they're a really good team as well and still have more experience. You would have thought, Kansas would be the favorite and Kansas would be up at half right now. But that's not how basketball works. Basketball, teams can upset you at any time. And Kentucky beating Kansas, I would say it would be an upset. I mean, it wouldn't be like an upset in the traditional sense. Like if a team like Iowa beat Kansas, that would be an upset. Kentucky beating Kansas, even though Kentucky ranked 17th, has, a couple injuries to Bradshaw, Ugana, Yensu. There's still so much talent. It's John Calipari. Kentucky can win games like this. So it wouldn't really be a big upset, but it would be a huge win for sure that most people would not have predicted. Brock is here. Appreciate you for being here. Says, Roll Tide, Kentucky is a problem. Dillingham is a dude. Yes, Robert Dillingham set the tone. When he started knocking down three after three, I was like, oh boy, Kansas is in trouble. Dillingham's starting to get hot. And then Adu Thero picked up the slack once Dillingham kind of cooled off a bit. Then you saw the response by Adu Thero. And I'm telling you, that guy, if he continues to play like this, it could be one of the most improved players in college basketball. He was an afterthought last season. He was a late addition to Kentucky's roster. No one really was expecting much from him. He didn't really do much last year. He didn't play that much last year. He's going out there and just providing effort. I mean, it's not even necessarily that he's, showing a lot of talent and athleticism outside of those putback dunks. That's talent and athleticism. But it's just the sheer will and fight to get rebounds and to get putbacks. It's giving you Dennis Rodman vibes. Definitely. Just complete Dennis Rodman vibes. Brock says, yes, I remember him. He's a whole different player. And you want guys to do that. So one of the most interesting things when you watch college basketball, especially something that used to happen a lot in the past, that once one and dones came to be, you didn't get as much. But now it's been happening more with more guys coming back for another year or two of college basketball. But one of the coolest things about watching a player and a team is watching a guy year over year get better. It's one of my favorite things. I've always enjoyed seeing like a 3 or 4 year player. And every single year that he's in college basketball, whether he's at the same team or he goes to another team does better, it's just seeing that guy get better. So with Adu Thero, I mean, it's awesome to see. I'm happy to see it. It's great stuff. Seeing a guy that you didn't even really, a lot of people probably didn't even know he was on the roster at Kentucky. Outside if you were a Kentucky fan or you keep up with recruiting and stuff, to now this, how well he's playing. Can he keep it up? Can he continue to play at this high of a level, throughout the season? Or is this just a one-time game? Because I've seen that before. I've seen a lot of guys have like a big early season game and then they just kind of disappear again. But I don't know. He looks for real. Brock, you say development is very important. You're absolutely right. Development is important. And a lot of guys, talk about Calipari. Can he develop? Some of these other coaches like Jay Wright when he was coaching Villanova, Tom Izzo, Michigan State, Some people, talk about those guys that they're great developers and guys get better at their programs. With Calipari, you don't get a lot of that because most of his guys are 5-star players. They go pro, after 1 year, so you don't really get to see too much of the development aspect. And if guys do come back, they usually eventually transfer out because they're not getting playing time. But if a Duke Hero can really explode and, maybe even be an NBA player, just, do big things for Kentucky, that would really, help a lot of people when you're talking about Calipari and them thinking higher of him with development stuff. So that would be huge. But they're showing right now the earlier game, Duke and Michigan State. I did pick Michigan State to win when I did my Champions Classic predictions. And I thought with the experience of Tom Izzo, coaching with obviously having way more years of experience than John Shire. And I did feel Michigan State had a talented team, and they do, but they're struggling to shoot the ball right now. They're going to have to get better shooting the three. And Duke, kind of like what Robert Dillingham did in the first half for Kentucky, Caleb Foster, a 5-star freshman for Duke, he got hot in the second half. He was blazing hot from three, knocking down shots, and that helped Duke pull away. There was one point in the game, Michigan State cut to like 3, and I was like, here's Michigan State. This is when they're going to take control of the game. Nope. Duke pulled away again, and they played really well. That was a good game. And if you're wondering, I did pick Kansas to win this game as well. So if Kentucky wins, I went 0 for 2 at my predictions. But it happens. You get some right, you get some wrong. But all these teams are talented. It's why it's very hard to pick these games, because when you have Duke, Michigan State, Kentucky, and Kansas playing in the Champions Classic, and every year the games flip. So Kentucky's playing Kansas, next year they'll play a different team, and vice versa. All these teams are good. And you look at their records in the event, like Kansas is like 7-5 in the event. Kentucky's like 5-7. So all of them are like around 500 in this event. And it's so these games are played so early in the year that these teams aren't even as good as they're going to become. Like I've seen a lot of years with this event where I'm looking at these 4 teams, Kentucky, Kansas, Michigan State, and Duke, and I'll see like Kentucky lose to Duke, but then I'll see them like later in the year, and I'm like, you know what? If Kentucky played Duke now, Kentucky probably would win the game. And obviously that happens in football. Happens in football all the time. A lot of people are saying, what if Alabama played Texas now in college football? Alabama probably would win. Obviously you don't know that. But, Texas won earlier in the year. But that's the way it works. When you play these early games like this, sometimes you just do not know, really if the team that won is the better team or is going to end up being the better team. So, like Duke beat Michigan State. Now, obviously, I do have some doubts with Michigan State because of the way they're shooting the ball. So, Duke, with their talent, they probably are going to end up being better than Michigan State. But like this game, if Kentucky beats Kansas, and then people are, crowning Kentucky, man, they're a top 10 team. They're really good. They could be, one of the best teams in the sport. Well, Kansas could rebound and end up having an elite season, and Kentucky kind of struggled down the stretch of the season. And people would say, well, Kansas would have beaten Kentucky if they played later on in the year. So it's interesting. I don't know. I just think it's kind of one of those deals where these games are, big showcase events showing the sports back, but I don't really think they're big indicators of how good these teams actually are. You need more results. You need kind of like at least a half a season to say this is a good team or this is a better team than that team. And even though they lost to that team then, they would beat them now. It's interesting. It's definitely an interesting argument for sure. But I love these events anyway, even if the results, really aren't indicative of anything. They still are very fun games for sure. Brock says, yeah, Bam is better now. Milroe's going off. Milroe in that Texas game versus Milroe now is just unthinkable. Like, they're not even like the same player. And I think a lot of this is play calling. You change the play calling. You allow Milroe to get in space, to be able to run the ball, to be able to get out of the pocket more. And he's not just sitting in the pocket and trying to be Tom Brady, kind of like, he's not even close to that. He's good. He's a good runner, and he's better, at running around and throwing and stuff. It's better for Milroe. It's better for Alabama's offense. That's why they're doing better. And sometimes it takes that player weeks to get better. Sometimes it takes coaches weeks to figure out how to use that player. And it works in college basketball. Sometimes you have a guy that's really good, but like you don't know how he's going to fit with your roster. You don't know how he's going to fit with some of your new players because Kentucky, Kansas, these are new teams. I mean, talk about Kansas. They do have DeJuan Harris back from last year and Kevin McCullough. and KJ Adams, but almost everybody else is new. Nick Timberlake's new. Hunter Dickinson's new. Elmarco Jackson's new. Parker Brown's new. And Kentucky, Antonio Reeves is back. And Adu Thiero, but he didn't play much, but everybody else is new. Trey Mitchell transferred in. Dillingham, Justin Edwards, Aaron Bradshaw, who hasn't played yet, Reed Shepard, DJ Wagner. All these guys are new. So you're basically operating with a completely new team. You're trying to see how these players fit together, who fits better with who. And sometimes, guys, it takes them a little while to get better. So, again, these games are important even if you don't win. Like, if Kansas does lose this game, it's not panic time that Kansas is, underachieving or they're, no longer, like one of the best teams in college basketball this year. They got cracks in their team. Obviously, they've got cracks if they don't win, but it's early in the year. So definitely not time to overreact. The early part of the season is one of the funnest parts of the year because you still don't know how good a team is. Like, you can lose an early game and everybody's hitting the panic button. But then 5-6 weeks later, that team's completely rebounded and everybody's forgotten about that. So that's one of the most fun parts of the early season in college basketball. It's the storylines, the overreactions, the panic button. Everybody's looking at one game. It's like, oh, we beat this big team by 25. We're great. And then like 5 weeks later, they're just an average team that played a great game that day. So it's crazy for sure. It's going to be wild to see how college basketball shakes out. Obviously, college football, you look at the sport every year and you point to Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan. Used to be Clemson, but not right now. Maybe a couple other teams could squeak in there, but it's usually the same few at the top. In basketball, you got your same teams like Kansas, Duke, Kentucky, Carolina, the Blue Bloods that are always good. But other teams can have success. You saw Baylor win a title. UConn just won a title last year. Baylor, 3 years ago. So I do believe overall that basketball has more variety, more teams that can be good. You even talk about Brock, if you're still here, Alabama. I'm sure you're definitely happy with Alabama basketball being way more relevant than they used to be. Arkansas is more relevant than they used to be. So just a lot of teams are good, can have success. I think that's why a lot of people like college basketball. Both sports are awesome in their own way. I love college basketball and college football, but college basketball definitely has a lot of differences for sure. Jackson says, if you love hearing great hot take from Only Talk Sport, follow me on Twitter and YouTube. Appreciate that, Jackson. I really do appreciate you for being here. Definitely, I tweet every day some takes on what I think about sports, college football, college basketball, NFL, NBA, but really appreciate that, Jackson. Jackson, let's get Only Talk Sports to 10,000 subs. I really appreciate that, Jackson. That would be awesome. You guys already are the best. You guys are awesome. Appreciate every single one of you guys that have watched, sub, like one of my videos or streams in the past. But if you guys are new, subscribe to the channel, like the stream down below. Follow me on Twitter as well. As Jackson pointed out, I've got more content coming every single day. But I cannot wait for this second half of the Kentucky versus Kansas game. And most importantly, I just really appreciate you guys for being here. And I really appreciate the shout out, Jackson. Appreciate you for being here as well. It's going to be a blast. Can't wait. It's been a good game. With games like this, like I said, I just love watching to see how these teams look early on. Again, it's not indicative of how good they're going to be, but it does, play a role in perception for sure and confidence. Sometimes if you do get a big win, it carries over the rest of the season. So a big win for Kentucky could get a guy like Robert Dillingham just, going for the rest of the year. Adu Thiero could build his confidence. So this is a very important game for Kentucky. I do think that it's more important for them than Kansas because these guys are so young that a big win like this could really boost their confidence to cloud nine. Now, obviously, Calipari's going to have to ring that in, if they get overconfident and then, they start to play poorly because we just beat Kansas. We can beat anybody. And then they lose to a bad team. So a lot of different feelings and emotions there. Kansas probably shocked to be down, but Bill Self, one of the best coaches in college basketball, making halftime adjustments. We'll see if he is able to get his team to guard that three-point line better because if he can get his team to guard the three-point line better, there's a really good shot that Kansas can come back and win this game, because Kentucky, a big reason why that they are up is because they were knocking down all those threes. Kentucky gets the ball first in the second half. 19:50 to go in the second half. 48-41. Kentucky up by 7. Trey Mitchell with the ball over to a Dude Thero that had an insanely good first half. Antonio Reeves back to Thero. 19:40 to go. DJ Wagner with the ball in the lane, and he's fouled. And see, when you're knocking down threes, it's almost like with football. It's wild how football and basketball have so many correlations that are similar. In football, if you have a guy, throwing the football and he's getting sacked a lot, it makes it harder, to run the football, because then if you're not being able to throw the ball, then you have to run the ball, and then they start knowing that's all you're going to do. So then they shut that down, and then neither's working. You can't run the ball, and you already can't pass the ball, especially when you get to the point in the game where you have to pass the ball. So that's how it works in football. And then in basketball, if you're knocking down threes, it opens up driving lanes, because then they're guarding you closer, you can get to the rim. But if you are struggling to shoot threes, they sag, and then you can't get in the paint and do what your bread and butter is, which for a lot of teams, you're not a good three-point shooting team. It is scoring inside. So it's crazy how that works out. But definitely Kentucky shooting the ball well. That has helped them drive into the lane. They hit a free throw and missed a free throw on the first possession of the second half, but then Kansas missed. And then DJ Wagner, obviously showing his heritage right there. Grandson of Milt Wagner. He's a really good athlete, and his parents, grandparents, and dad were really good basketball players as well, and it looks like he's going to be really good. Also, definitely a great pickup for John Calipari. They got him over Louisville, and he puts Kentucky up by 10. It's 51-41. Under 19 to go in the second half. And now Kentucky's getting the ball again. Kansas cannot get into a rhythm, and it's looking like it's carrying over to the second half. Kentucky going down the floor. DJ Wagner with the ball. He's driving to the rim again. He does miss this time, and Kevin McCullough with the board. Kansas needs to run the floor, get inside. KJ Adams out to Elmarco Jackson. Jackson outside to Kevin McCullough, who was really quiet in the first half. Can he get going? He kicks to KJ Adams, and KJ Adams is blocked from behind by a Dude Thero. What a play by Thero. He's been doing so well on defense as well as offense, but then Kentucky turns it over. Cal's not going to like that. And then Kansas turns it over themselves. Elmarco Jackson, full head of steam, but he ran out of real estate. Out of bounds line was in front of him, and he dribbled it off his foot. And Bill Self is not happy. Kansas with 8 turnovers, Kentucky with 4. It's another reason Kentucky's in front. They've taken care of the basketball better than Kansas has. You got Reeves in the lane. Reeves is fouled. So now Kentucky's not even shooting jump shots. They're just driving to the rim. But I think that was Calipari's strategy. He just told his team, you know what? We just got to get to the rim. That's what we're going to do. We got to get to the rim, get Kansas in foul trouble. Now DeJuan Harris with 3 fouls. He did touch his hand. If he had gone straight up, it would not have been a foul. But DeJuan Harris, which is a big mistake for a very experienced player. DeJuan Harris is an experienced guy. But he made a big mistake there. You cannot foul. You cannot pick up your 3rd foul, and you cannot foul a guy that might not have made the shot anyway. But Reeves knocks down both free throws. He's 4-4 at the line, has 7 points, and that's key as well. The fact that a Dude Thero and Robert Dillingham are playing so well is allowing a guy like Antonio Reeves to not even have to be a focus point of the offense, even though he is the veteran. And then DeJuan Harris makes a mistake on the other end. DJ Wagner down the floor. He misses the shot. KJ Adams does save the ball. It looked like Kentucky was going to go up by 14 there, but Kansas gets to stop DeJuan Harris into the lane, and DeJuan Harris for 2 and 1. That's a big play. And now DeJuan Harris and Antonio Reeves are getting into it. That's not something you want to see right there. Got to keep that under control. You love the competitiveness, but it looked like Kansas and Kentucky were about to get into it. DeJuan Harris, after he scored that 2, got it to fall. Him and Antonio Reeves started talking to each other a little bit. Harris went over there. He kind of bumped into him a little bit. I don't really know why he did. He wasn't even near him. And then he just kind of runs into him, and then they start talking to each other. A little bit of a shove there. I mean, that's just two guys battling, but you can't let that get out of control. So DeJuan Harris, he knocks down the free throw. That's a good response by him. He's made a couple mistakes in the second half to start with a foul and a bad turnover, but he's got 11 points and 4 assists, so he's not having a bad game. But still, Kansas down by 9. They need more offense, and they need to get some defensive stops. Trey Mitchell over to Dillingham, who thought about taking the 3. Out to Mitchell. He thought about taking the 3. Now Antonio Reeves, and he cans the triple. 56-44, 12-point lead for Kentucky. Reeves has 10. Everybody's hitting threes for the Wildcats. Harris over to Elmarco Jackson, and Elmarco Jackson with the turnover. See, when you get down by this much, now that Kansas is down by 12, it looks like, I'm not saying they're panicking, but they're starting to make some uncharacteristic mistakes. They look a little sped up. It kind of looks like Kansas wants to play a bit more of a slower offense. They do want to run the floor, but Kentucky is just all gas, no brakes. Kansas, they want some gas, but they kind of want to put the brakes on as well. But now that they're down by 12, it's kind of forcing them to be all gas, no brakes. In the corner, Jordan Furphy can't hit the shot after Kentucky missed, and now Kentucky saves the ball from going out of bounds. Robert Dillingham down on the floor. Dillingham thought about the 2, but instead kicks it to Reeves, who misses the shot, and they're going to call a foul on KJ Adams. Kansas is about to lose it. They're getting frustrated. They're getting frustrated with the fouls. They can't get shots to fall. Kentucky, everything's going their way right now. I mean, they're hitting shots. They're hitting free throws. I mean, this has been a great performance. I mean, definitely credit to Kentucky all around. They're playing good basketball for such a young team. Knocking down shots, not turning the ball over as much, and Kansas is racking up fouls. Kansas already has 4 fouls in the first 3.5 minutes of the second half. That's something to watch as well. When you're the team losing, you do not want to get in foul trouble. And Kansas starting to pick up some fouls. The real MVP is here. Appreciate you for being here, the real MVP. I know you love your Kentucky Wildcats, and the Kentucky Wildcats in basketball are rolling right now. A 2 by Reeves. It's 58-44. Appreciate you for being here, the real. Happy for your team. Doing a great job in this game. Definitely a shock to see Kansas panicking this early in the game, but DeJuan Harris does knock down a 3. That's big for Kansas, but will it be enough? They're still down 11. They need stops, but Kentucky's doing a great job all around. They have not had too many glaring weaknesses in this game. They're doing good at the line. They're not turning it over too much, hitting threes. Down low, Justin Edwards, he misses, but Dickinson has the board for Kansas. Down 11. Down the 4, Kevin McCullough. But what a block by Edwards, but I think they called a foul on Kentucky. That might have been on Trey Mitchell, so there's going to be some free throws. The Real says Kentucky doesn't make 3. They've been playing this game, I think 40-0 is in the table. Yeah, I mean, definitely Aaron Bradshaw and Ugonna Yensu, and they have another big as well, to your point, who's 7'2". All 3 of those guys are out. And when they come back, I mean, Kentucky's going to be loaded. I mean, they have so much talent. That's the thing that's always helped John Calipari. He's able to get talent in. They've always had super talented teams, even if they're young. It does hurt them when they're in the tournament sometimes when they're playing really experienced teams. But having that much talent and that much depth, I mean, it almost looks like this team in a way is like an Anthony Davis type of team, like in the past, where you just have talent everywhere. Really dynamic guards and a lot of centers. You just got to get Bradshaw back. You got to Yensu. And to your point, Big Z. He's the other guy. Big Z, he's 7'2". For sure. I've seen him on the roster. I saw when they added him. He's a really big guy as well. If all those guys are down low, it's going to be hard to score on Kentucky in the paint. Very hard. So Kentucky's got a great-looking roster. When you got talent, you're going to win games. But it's what you do with that talent. Look at Texas A&M in football. They had talent, but they weren't winning games. Kentucky, people have been critical of Calipari lately. They've had talent, and they haven't been winning as much. But this year, they have so much talent and so much depth everywhere, especially if they're healthy. There's not a lot of excuses for Kentucky to not be that great, to be a 21-12 type of team. 23-10. They need to be more like in the lines of 27-6 or something like that. Really good record, which I think Kentucky can achieve if they keep playing like this. It's one game, and they could fold. I mean, Kansas could turn around and win this game, but Kentucky, is doing a great job in this game, and it bodes well for the season. And 100% DeReal, 100%. It's been a long time since I've seen a Kentucky team that can shoot this well. You weren't here earlier in the first half, but I was talking about that exact thing. You nailed it on the head, DeReal. Because this team looks like the teams that had Jamal Murray and Malik Monk. Those teams were really good at shooting threes. And then, like, the last 3 years, Kentucky hasn't been able to shoot that well from three, which is like Kentucky always shoots well from three. Now, they're lights out from three again. It's one game. Robert Dillingham has been the big benefactor. He's been the one shooting the most from the outside. But guys like Antonio Reeves has gotten into the action. Even Trey Mitchell knocked down one. So, for sure, I do believe that this Kentucky team is going to be a much better three-point shooting team this year. And if they are, then they're going to be really good, especially when they get the bigs back. Yeah, they're showing on the screen Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, Cameron Brink, Paige Buckers, some of the best players in the women's college basketball. All those are going to be WNBA players as well. They're fantastic. But in men's college basketball, you've got a lot of great players as well. I mean, guys on this floor, just these four teams that we've seen. You talk about Hunter Dickinson. You talk about DeJuan Harris. You talk about for Kentucky, Robert Dillingham, Justin Edwards, Adu Thero, Reed Shepard, DJ Wagner. Michigan State's got Tyson Walker, AJ Hogard, Maddie Sissoko, tons of guys, Jaden Akins, and then Duke, Kyle Filipowski. I mean, it goes on and on. They got a load of roster as well. Duke's got a lot of good players. Jeremy Roach is really good. He's their experienced veteran player. So all of these four teams are talented. It just shows you how much talent's in women's college basketball and men's college basketball for that matter. It's more talent than there's been in a long time because so many guys are coming back. So it's great for the sport. Kansas hits a free throw, so it's 58-48, 10-point game. Can Kentucky build upon the lead, or will Kansas come back? Turnover by Kentucky. DeJuan Harris down the floor, and he's fouled. So DeJuan Harris will be going to the line. That's a smart play by DeJuan Harris. Very smart. DeReal says, I'm not sure how Michigan State is going to score. The key is if Tyson Walker can get help, they can be good. But guys like Xavier Booker, he was a 5-star freshman. He hasn't really contributed yet for the Spartans. That's a problem. He definitely is going to have to get more involved in the offense. And I think guys like Jaden Akins and AJ Hogard have not really improved. Malik Hall as well. He's another guy. Those guys have not improved enough yet, to really warrant the hype for Michigan State. I think a lot of people thought that they were going to be, a lot better because those guys were going to get better. And they missed Joey Hauser. Joey Hauser was a really good shooter last year for Michigan State. He's gone. So Michigan State needs some of those returning players to get better. When you return, you got to have improvement. Like Adu Thero has improved for Kentucky. Stuff like that. So Kansas split the free throws again. DeJuan Harris could not hit them both. Kansas needs all the free throws they can get at this point because they're down. And then on the other end, Robert Dillingham. He drove in the lane. He draws a foul on Kansas, and now he has Kentucky back up by 10 because of the fact that he hit the first free throw. And he can get him up by 11 if he hits the second free throw, which he does. So it looks like Dillingham is a great shooter. He's good at the line. He's good in the mid-range. He's good from outside. He's got 18 points. Again, when you got a star guard like that, it makes John Calipari's job a lot easier. Down low, Kansas tried to get to Hunter Dickinson, and there was a deflection from Trey Mitchell. And it knocked off Hunter Dickinson's hands. What a play by Trey Mitchell. And when you know what Kansas is trying to do, which is get the ball down low, it makes it easier to guard it. Dillingham down the floor. Dillingham tried to get it to Adu Thero. If that had somehow gotten through, that would have been an insane play, but it did not work. Kevin McCullough thought about the three, kicks to DeJuan Harris. Kansas down by 11. They need points. DeJuan Harris down low to McCullough. McCullough shots off the mark. Dickinson with the ball, and Dickinson for 2 and 1. Dickinson doing all he can down low. Kansas cuts it to 9. But if Kentucky keeps shooting the ball as well as they are, it is going to be very difficult for Kansas to keep operating with just this 2-point game. They're not hitting threes. Kansas is basically, it's all down low. It's all getting to the rim. But it's being effective because Dickinson, he's shooting the ball really well in this game, and he's also done a really good job at the line. Huge shot for Kansas. And Dickinson, he hits the free throw to boot. Dickinson has 16 points and 13 boards. I said earlier in the game, when he already had like 7, 8 boards, I think he can have like 12, 13. He could have close to 20. He really could. He is a rebounding machine right now. 32nd career double-double for him. The transfer from the Michigan Wolverines. Down low, Trey Mitchell on the block, trying to go up strong, and he is fouled. He misses the shot, but he is fouled. McCullough is not happy. He thought he went straight up, but he might have got him on the arm there, and that's why the referee blew the whistle. Yeah, he did. I think he got him a little bit on the arm. He shouldn't have jumped either. He cannot jump. When a guy does a pump fake, you have to stay disciplined and keep your feet on the floor, because if you jump, it's going to be a foul 99% of the time, because there's no way that you can be able to keep your body away from hitting the other guy. Now, Trey Mitchell, though, missed the first. Kentucky can't start missing free throws. You got the lead. You got to use every free throw that you can possibly get to expand on that lead. But Trey Mitchell, the transfer from West Virginia, he missed the first. His second free throw is up, and it's off the mark as well. This could be a big turning point here. 8-point game. Kentucky with a chance to go back up by 10. Misses 2 free throws. DeJuan Harris to Kevin McCullough. Down low to Adams. And KJ Adams for 2 and 1. 6-point game. And Darrell, I agree. If you are a Kentucky fan, this is not good. 2 big missed free throws by Trey Mitchell. And then you have KJ Adams down low, rolling to the basket. He's fouled. No need to foul there if you're Kentucky. KJ Adams has 8 points, 4-6 from the field, and his free throw is up, and it's off the mark. So Kansas missing a key free throw. So still a 6-point game, 60-54. Wagner down the floor to Justin Edwards. His shot is an air ball. Dickinson racking up another board. And then KJ Adams with the alley-oop slam dunk. 4-point game, 60-56. Calipari might want to call timeout here. And I think he is. He's got to take a TO because Kentucky, I'm not saying they're falling apart, but Kansas is starting to heat back up. What a sequence. Those 2 missed free throws from Trey Mitchell, though, were big. And that's a great pass by the veteran, Kevin McCullough, to KJ Adams, and he eviscerated the rim on that alley-oop. 4-point game. We might have a big finish here. Could be a close one down the stretch. But the key is that Kentucky has to keep making jump shots, because that's where they were having all their success. They were doing a really good job in this game of knocking down threes. And now, I'm not saying that stopped. They've still been shooting well, and their percentages haven't really gone down per se. But there is a shift. They're not shooting as well as they were in the first half. And those 2 missed free throws, that's just a momentum shifter. When you miss 2 free throws, it's basically a turnover. It's a cliche statement, but it's true. You miss 2 free throws, it's a turnover. You basically just gave it away. You got to at least get 1. And now Kansas taking advantage of that. And they're such an experienced team. I know I've hammered it home all stream, but they are an experienced team, and they've got a lot more experience than Kentucky. And they're obviously not rattled. I thought they were. They looked a bit rattled when they were down 12. But now they've got it back down to 4. We'll see what happens. We'll see if John Calipari can make adjustments. Darrell says, why can't Kentucky have a comfortable win? Well, on the one hand, getting a big win, if Kentucky wins by like 15, it's a comfortable win. You're happy. But if you got a close game that's really good and you end up pulling it out, that can be fun as well. But I know what you mean, Darrell. Obviously, as a diehard fan, you sometimes just want to see your team get a big win, and it's not even close. But, that's what makes these games fun, though. Going down to the wire, both teams giving it all they got. But it's going to be interesting. I believe that Kansas has gotten over that wall right now. They were really struggling. I was definitely not confident in Kansas coming back when they were down 12 and they were turning it over like on back-to-back possessions. But now you can tell, you can just tell watching them play, they've started to figure things out a little bit. And it's going to be interesting. Definitely is going to be interesting to see what happens. I think this is still a game that could go either way at this point. A few minutes ago, I thought Kentucky was going to pull this one out. Earlier in the game in the first half, I thought Kansas would. So there's still a lot left here. And they're showing next year. They're already showing Atlanta, Georgia in 2024. The Champions Classic is going to be back with Michigan State, Kansas, Duke, Kentucky. Can't wait for that. Definitely going to be a lot of fun. But no time is like the present. It's 2023 Champions Classic. Michigan State dropped a good game to Duke, and now we've got Kentucky, Kansas. 4-point game. 13:51 to go in the second half. And we've got the Wildcats clinging to a 4-point lead. Brock's Kansas crawling back in it. 100% Brock. They're doing a good job. We'll see if Kentucky can respond this possession. Out of the timeout by Calipari. Adu Thero over to Antonio Reeves. Top of the key. Gets a screen from Trey Mitchell. Reeves. Nowhere to go with the ball. Finds Justin Edwards. Back to Reeves. In the mid-range. And Reeves for 2. What a shot. Again, Kentucky, if they keep shooting this well, they're going to win. They're doing a great job shooting the ball. They had a little bit of a rough patch there, but that's a big response by Reeves, who's only 4 of 12 shooting in this game, but he has 14. But KJ Adams on the other end. Another great pass by the Jayhawks. KJ Adams for 2. He's in double digits. He's got 12. Down the floor. Almost a turnover, but Justin Edwards saves it. 62-58, 13 to go in the second. Wagner to Reeves. Reeves being guarded by Furphy. Reeves thought about the 3. 10 seconds on the shot clock. Reeves on KJ Adams. Step back 3. And Reeves' shot is off the mark. And Dickinson with his 15th rebound. Unbelievable. DeJuan Harris with the ball, slowing it down. Kansas down 4. Hunter Dickinson with 16 points and 15 rebounds. Kentucky really needed the centers in this game because Kansas is definitely out-rebounding them. Total rebounds is pretty close, but Dickinson's out-rebounding everybody else by a lot. DeJuan Harris down the floor to Dickinson for the slam dunk. What a play. Dickinson slipping to the rim. DeJuan Harris find him. It's 62-60. 18 points for Dickinson on 6 of 9 shooting. Wagner to Edwards to Adu Thero, and Adu Thero cannot hit the 3. Now you've got DeJuan Harris back the other way. It's a 2-point game. 12 to go in the second half. DeJuan Harris driving in the lane to the rim, and his shot's off the mark, but Dickinson with the putback. Dickinson's taking over the game. 20 points for him, and we got a tie game, 62-62. 11:45 to go in the second, and the Kansas fans in the building have come back to life. 32 points in the paint for the Jayhawks to Kentucky 16. Kentucky's been dominating the outside scoring, but Kansas starting to dominate inside. Reeves misses a 3 on the other end. Kansas basketball. What a response. 2 halves in every game. 2 halves in every game in Kansas. They're starting to show why they're ranked number 1 right here. Can Kentucky respond? KJ Adams with the ball to DeJuan Harris. Back over to KJ Adams. He misses the shot. Dickinson tried to get the rebound, but he could not. Now Kentucky going back the other way. Tie game, 11 to go. Wagner down the floor. His shot is off the mark. KJ Adams, he has the ball going down the floor. Kicks to McCullough. McCullough to the rim. And his shot is good. 64-62. And it's an and 1. Unbelievable play by Kevin McCullough. He's been quiet most of this game, but he's had a couple of really good passes, including the alley-oop to Adams. And now Adams returns the favor, gets it to McCullough. He takes a lot of contact, and he gets that shot to fall. And that play before where Dickinson somehow tapped in over like 2 guys, that was an unbelievable play. Absolutely unbelievable. DeReal says, it makes it fun for everyone except Kentucky and Kansas fans. For sure. When you're in a close game, it doesn't matter who it is. If it's Ohio State, Michigan football, if it's Duke, Carolina basketball, whatever game it may be, when people that are fans of other teams are watching those games, oh, they're loving it. Man, I love this game. Hope it goes to double overtime, triple overtime. They just want to see more basketball or football. But when you are a fan of both teams, you don't want that. I agree. You want to be able to see your team win comfortably and you're good to go. You do not want to see a close game. So I agree. It's a crazy dynamic. the real when you got fans of teams versus basically people that are just watching the game and they don't care who wins. It's crazy. The real says Kentucky lived by the 3, and now it looks like they're dying by the 3. And that's something when I was younger, Duke always did. Duke in like the late 2000s, early 2010s always did this. When they were hot from 3, no one, and I mean no one, could beat them. But when they couldn't make a 3 and they were struggling from the outside, then that's the problem. They would lose early in the tournament. We've seen Iowa do this in basketball. Iowa has good three-point shooting teams, but they go cold in the tournament and they lose. Tons of teams have done this. You have to be able to have versatility. Threes are great. And when they're falling, taking them is awesome. But if you're not making them, it becomes a problem. Remember, Auburn went far in the tournament that year. Auburn, they beat Carolina. They beat Duke. They beat a lot of good teams that year in the tournament because they couldn't miss. Man, they hit like 23s against North Carolina in the Sweet 16. So some teams can do it. Some teams can go far in the NCAA tournament just hitting threes, but you have to have a hot streak. Caleb Love basically and Brady Mack took Carolina to the championship game 2 years ago. Basically, no one thought Carolina was going to do that. But Caleb Love got hot from the outside in the tournament. And then the next year, Carolina missed the tournament because they lived by the 3 and died by the 3, and they did not have the same success. So I agree 100%, Drew. That phrase definitely is valid, and it applies to college basketball for a lot of different teams. The Real says Kentucky was up 14. Yeah, man, no lead safe for sure. You're 100% correct. You cannot lax up, and I'm not saying Kentucky did. Kansas is just that good. These are just two teams balling out. Both these teams are fantastic. This game could go down to who has the ball last. You never know. But yeah, Kentucky was up big, and now you see Kansas in the lead. But it's only a 2-point lead. Kentucky could go on an 8-0 run here, a 10-0 run, get the lead back, and people think Kentucky's got it again. That's what makes basketball so much fun because of the swings in the game, the momentum swings. 1 minute you think this team's got it, the next minute it looks like the other team's got it. So it's going to be a wild finish, and I cannot wait, and I'm glad. Appreciate you guys for being here. Geeks or Squids here. He says, don't underestimate Kentucky. They've been here numerous times, a college team and brand. For sure. Definitely don't underestimate either Kansas or Kentucky. It's going to be a great game, but really appreciate you being here, Geeks or Squid. Kentucky missed 7 of the last 9 field goals. Kansas has made 7 of their last 9 field goals. And Kevin McCullough cashes in with the free throw on that 3-point play. It's 65-62. Kansas on a 16-2 run. Down low. You've got Trey Mitchell on the block. Outside to Antonio Reeves. And Antonio Reeves has replaced Robert Dillingham as the Wildcat that's hot from the outside. He's been big in the second half. Dillingham couldn't miss in the first. And now Reeves can't miss in the second. 11 threes for Kentucky, 4 for Kansas. And Kansas turns the basketball over. Dickinson tried to get it to KJ Adams down low, and it didn't work. Good defense by Kentucky. Tie game, 65 all. 12 turnovers for Kansas, 6 turnovers for Kentucky. Kansas definitely struggling. Take care of the ball. Kansas shooting 47% of the field. Kentucky only shooting 35%. But Kentucky's hit more threes, so that makes up for the lack of shooting percentage. If you're hitting more threes, you can have a bad shooting night as long as you hit enough of them to win. But I think Kentucky went down the floor, and I think Reed Sheppard drew a foul. Reed Sheppard, the freshman from the state of Kentucky, he's at the line. He has 6 points and 4 steals. He hit 2 big threes in the first half. He's been quiet since, but he's been really good on defense as well. Doing a great job turning over the Jayhawks. Now we'll see if he can hit some free throws. All free throws are going to be important down the stretch, especially because of the fact both teams are going to be in the bonus. The Real says Kentucky's taking 29 threes. That's got to be the most over a top team in quite some time. Probably, because a lot of times you want to bang inside, get to the line a lot, but you could be right. I'm not 100% sure about that stat, like when's the last game against a top team. Team shot that many threes, but it's got to be, a few seasons for sure, Drew. That's an interesting point for sure. Kansas 17-21 from the line. Kentucky 16-21. Both teams are shooting the same amount of free throws, basically, and they've both been accurate at the line. Reed Sheppard, he hit both free throws at the line, so now Kentucky's up by 2. But Robert Dillingham made a big mistake on the other end. He fouled Kevin McCullough. He was trying to steal the ball, and that was clearly a foul. And now he has 4 fouls. So one of the biggest offensive threats that Kentucky has had in this game is now on the bench with 4 fouls. That's going to help out Kansas. But Kansas just missed a 1-and-1. Kevin McCullough missed, but Dickinson taps it back out. Dickinson down low, and he's fouled by Trey Mitchell. So now Dickinson's going to be going to the line where Dickinson's been great tonight. He's been hitting free throws at a high clip. And we're under 10 to go in the second half. Free throws are going to come into play. Both teams in the bonus. Both teams have been fouling a lot, playing very physical basketball. And Dickinson's first free throw is good. So he did what Kevin McCullough could not do. He hit the front end of a 1-and-1. And if Kansas wins, it's because of Dickinson. And because Kentucky didn't have their depth at center with Bradshaw, Big Z, and Oyensu. Because Dickinson has 21 points, 17 boards, which is insane. He's almost got a 20-20 game. He needs 3 more boards, but he did miss the second free throw. So it's 67-66. And Dickinson has another rebound. He's got 18 rebounds. It used to, Kentucky would have the Oscar Tshiebwe rebound counter because he would have games with 20-plus boards. Well, now Dickinson's doing it, and Dickinson's fouled down low again, this time on a shot, so he's going to have 2 free throws. This game might become a foul fest, especially with the way Kansas is wanting this game to trend. Kansas wants this game to be more twos. They don't want Kentucky shooting the 3 ball. As long as Kansas hits the free throws, that benefits Kansas for sure. That's a good pass by McCullough. Dickinson sealed well down there, and he hits the first, so we're tied again. What a great basketball game. 67-67. That's why people love the Champions Classic. 4 of the best teams in the sport matching up every year. It's a great event to kick off college basketball before the big Thanksgiving events. You couldn't ask for a better game than this. Dickinson knocks them both down. He's got 23 points and 18 rebounds. 68-67. 9:20 to go in the second. Top of the key, you've got Wagner, kicks over to Shepard. What's Kentucky going to do? Are they going to stick with the outside shooting, or are they going to try to get it inside and challenge Dickinson? Adu Thero down low. Thero goes up on Dickinson. He misses the shot. Really good defense by Dickinson. He went straight up. He did not lower his arms, and the refs did not blow the whistle. And this is Kansas basketball, under 9 to go. And the second quarter, DeJuan Harris, top of the key to Dickinson. Back to Harris. 8:50 to go in the second half. DeJuan Harris in the lane. Kicks down low to Parker Brown, the brother of Christian Brown, and he dunks it home. 70-67. Kansas with a 3-point lead. 8:40 to go in the second. Reed Shepard, top of the key. He pulls, and he knocks down the triple. Reed Shepard, the freshman, the lowest ranked player in that class for Kentucky, and he knocks down the big 3. The only other player that was ranked lower was Jordan Burks. Of the original recruits, he was the lowest ranked one. He knocks down a big 3 there at 70-70, and he's got 11. What contributions by him in a big game, his first big game as a Kentucky Wildcat. We're tied at 70-70. McCullough down low to Dickinson, and the ball is out of bounds. I think it is off of the Kentucky Wildcats, but it's 70-70. 8:03 to go in the second half. What a game. Darrell says Kentucky might want to seriously consider double teaming Dickinson. I agree. I mean, it doesn't help at all when you're single covering him and he just keeps on scoring on you. You got to be able to double team him. But you might leave someone open. That's the risk you run when you double team him, is because someone else could be open. Kansas took a shot before the buzzer. They did not get it to fall, so Kentucky has a chance to retake the lead. Dickinson guarding Trey Mitchell really well. Dickinson's been doing a good job on defense and on offense. Down low, Reeves to Thero. Somehow Thero was able to get that ball before it was a turnover. Down the floor, Wagner misses the shot. McCullough with the board. Kansas back the other way to Elmarco Jackson to Parker Brown. He misses a 1-footer. He had to readjust in the air, but he could have had that one, just couldn't get the fall. Reeves misses a 3. He gets it back. He misses a floater. And then you've got Adu Thero with the offensive board and a foul. Kevin McCullough's not happy. He thought that it was a clean play there, but they're going to call a foul on him. Adu Thero. He's been a problem for the Kansas Jayhawks. He had more of an impact in the first half, but he has had an impact in the second half as well. Rebounding, hitting some big shots. DeReal says, I'm not a fan of taking the transition three. It's one of those plays where if you make it, it's a great play. If you don't make it, it's not a good play. I'm with you. I think in most situations you shouldn't do it, especially in college basketball. NBA, it kind of makes more sense because already you play a lot quicker and there's more chances for you to be able to, quote-unquote, come back in the game, like even if you're down by 15 because the shot clock's at 24 and guys are just so good at shooting threes. But in college basketball, you kind of want to work it down low a bit and then kick it out for an open three, or if down low's there, take the short two. But I'm with you. I just don't really think it's a smart thing to do either in most situations. But when you're hot, sometimes it makes sense. But this game has been a game with opposites. Kentucky knocking down threes for the most part. They've gotten a little more cold at times in the second half, but they still hit a few. Reeves and Shepard have knocked down a couple. But then Kansas, they've been dominant down low, especially Dickinson. And even they've got Kevin McCullough, KJ Abs in the action as well. Kansas can hit threes. They're capable of hitting threes, but they've definitely put a focus on getting in the paint. Whereas Kentucky's been really just having a focus of score wherever you can, whether it's threes, twos, whatever it may be. And I don't know which strat really is, better for either team, whether it's Kentucky doing what they're doing or Kansas doing what they're doing. Kansas is probably more sustainable than what Kentucky's doing, because if Kentucky has a poor shooting night, they'll lose. But then again, as you mentioned, DeReal as well, Kentucky's going to get their bigs back, so they won't have to be like this. And doubling Dickinson is definitely an idea. But as we've seen a lot of times with other teams, you double the big and then you leave a guy open for three. That's when it's the best time to take a three, when a guy's doubled and you kick it out. The only reason Purdue lost to Fairleigh Dickinson was because they kept doubling Edey and he would kick it out for threes. And then Purdue couldn't hit a three to save their life. They only hit 3 threes in that game. So that's the problem. Like, if Kentucky doubles Dickinson and then they kick it out for threes and Kansas is hitting them, Kentucky would lose. But if Kansas was missing them like Purdue did, Kentucky would win. So it's all a bang-bang thing where it depends on what the other team's doing. You have to change your game plan based on what they're doing. I remember a game where Indiana was not doubling Luka Garza at Iowa, and Luka Garza like 42 points. And then basically they were single covered and everybody else, and no one else was scoring. And Indiana ended up winning like 65-60 over Iowa. And you're like, how did that work for Indiana letting Garza score that much? But sometimes you just got to let one guy do it all and shut everyone else down. So I don't think necessarily Kentucky allowing Dickinson to do this much is a bad thing. It just hurts when other guys are getting involved as well. I don't think Kentucky's necessarily doing a good enough job of slowing everyone else down, which is why they are in such a tight game. Adou Thero's out the line. His first free throw is good. His second free throw is off the mark. So he splits a pair. Kentucky's only up by 1. 7:10 to go in the second half. Kansas down by 1. They're 20-26 in the line. Kentucky 17-23. So Kentucky and Kansas have both missed 6 free throws. Kansas has shot 3 more. Adams kicks to Timberlake, to Elmarco Jackson, top of the key, to DeJuan Harris. DeJuan Harris gets a screen from Parker Brown. Harris to KJ Adams for 2. What a pass by DeJuan Harris. Like I said earlier in the first half, that's why DeJuan Harris is on the Bob Cousy Award watch list. He's a great passer. KJ Adams now with 14 points, most of them from within 2 feet of the rim. Shepard thought about the 3. Shepard in the mid-range. Kicks to Adou Thero. Adou Thero going inside. He misses the shot. He gets the offensive rebound, and he knocks it in. What a play by Adou Thero. Again, this guy is so improved from last year. Unbelievable effort by Thero. 73-72. We're going back and forth in Chicago, Illinois. What a Champions Classic game. This could be an actual classic if it goes down to the wire. What a game. Thero with 16 points, 12 boards, and a block on the other end. DeJuan Harris got blocked. Reeves down the floor, and Reeves for 2 and 1. And Kentucky's back up by 3 points. 75-72. That's a good play. That is a really good play right there. down the floor. Trey Mitchell blocked DeJuan Harris, and then Reeves coast to coast, taking contact from the freshman Elmarco Jackson. Gets the 2 to fall. And if he hits his free throw, he could put Kentucky up by double digits again. Not double digits, but by 2 possessions. And if Kentucky's playing well, they could get back up by double digits because the way they've been playing, they can score in a hurry. That's the biggest thing I've seen from Kentucky this year that I have not seen the last couple years. They almost look like vintage North Carolina. With the way North Carolina was under Roy Williams, running the floor, and they could score in transition, this is what Kentucky looks like. And older Calipari teams were good at it too. This looks like a vintage John Calipari team. So definitely. That's why I said they could get it back up by double digits. They could. Not here, but they definitely could. Because this team, if they keep this little hot streak going again, they could easily get back up by 12 points like they did earlier in this game against Kansas, and that could put them away. Kansas has a lot of experience. We'll see if they can respond. Reeves, he does knock down the free throw, and he's got 20 to put Kentucky up by 2 possessions. 76-72. It's a 4-point game. 6 to go in the second. DeReal says, go Big Blue, go Big Blue. Gixxer Squid says, what did I say? For sure. You're absolutely right, Gixxer Squid. Can't underestimate the talent Kentucky has. DeJuan Harris down the floor to KJ Adams, and Adams is fouled. The free throw line is saving Kansas right now. They're getting to the line, and they are knocking their free throws down because if it wasn't for that, if Kentucky had the free throw advantage and the 3-point advantage, Kentucky would be up by a lot more. But definitely the free throw line has saved the Jayhawks here. They got to keep hitting them, though. DeReal says you're a smart guy. Definitely. I mean, Gixxer's right. I mean, Kentucky is a team with talent every year, and when they're in a game and they're down, you can never count them out until it's over. Adams misses the first free throw, so while I'm singing praises for Kansas at the line, KJ Adams misses a free throw. If he hits his second free throw, though, it can put Kansas down by 1 possession. But we'll see. Second free throw's up, and it is off the mark as well. Just like when Trey Mitchell missed 2 free throws earlier in the second half, and that allowed Kansas to come back. Those 2 missed free throws from KJ Adams could be the difference here. And then you've got Reed Sheppard for 2. What a heady play by the freshman. 78-72, 6-point game. Kentucky creeping closer and closer to that double-digit lead that I was talking about. If Kentucky gets back up by 10 in this game, it might be all she wrote for Kansas. They cannot fall behind this late in the game by that much. I know Kansas came back quick, but Kentucky is starting to pull away a bit. And that is a great, smart play by Reed Sheppard. He saw an opening. Most freshmen would not take that opening in a game like this, but he realized I can get to the rim, let me go all the way to the rack, and lay it in. And that's what he did. Very smart play. Kentucky up 6. Bill Self calls timeout. So both Kentucky and Kansas have 2 timeouts left. They've done a good job with their timeout usage. To check up on the other game, Iowa, they were up on Creighton in the first half. Now they're down big. Looks like Creighton's in good shape. They're 75-61. Still time left in that game. But here in the Champions Classic, 5:35 to go in the second half. And Kentucky has a 6-point lead. This would be a huge win for the Wildcats. If they can beat Kansas, there's a good chance they can maybe climb into the top 10 of the rankings. Kansas would probably fall maybe to 5th or 6th or something like that. This would be huge for Kentucky. Reeves with 20. Dillingham with 18. Thiero with 16. And Sheppard with 13. Balanced scoring for Kentucky. Tons of guys playing well. And if they can keep it up for another 5.5 minutes, they might be beating the number 1 team in the land right now in college basketball. Dickinson loses the basketball. Kentucky back the other way. And that's with Justin Edwards with 1 point. One of the top players, one of the top freshmen on Kentucky's team. He's got 1 point, and they're still up by 6. Sheppard in the lane. A mistake by Sheppard, though. He should have went up with the layup, but he tried to pass out of it, and he did not get the shot to go. But then on the other end, KJ Adams somehow put back the miss from Kevin McCullough. I have no idea how he got that to go. That's a good play by KJ Adams. Sheppard in the lane. Sheppard got a little too deep, kicks it back out to Trey Mitchell. 78-74, 4:40 to go in the second. Reeves with the basketball over to Thiero. He thought about the 3, wisely decides not to take it. 5 seconds on the shot clock. Thero in the lane. Tried to kick to Edwards and another turnover. This could help Kansas. Down the floor, Elmarco Jackson with the miss. What's the call? 4:30 to go in the second. Did they call a foul? They might have called a foul on Kentucky. If that's the case, that's a big bailout for Kansas because it would have been Kentucky going back the other way. I think they did. Elmarco Jackson's lining up to go to the foul line, to the charity stripe. It might have been some contact on his head because I didn't see anything that really impacted the shot, but I think they might have got him across the head. His first free throw's up, and it's off the mark. Kansas is missing clutch free throws here. KJ Adams missed 2, and now Elmarco Jackson missed 1. You cannot miss free throws in this part of the game. This is the most important time to hit them. His second free throw is good, though. So it's 78-75, 3-point game, 4:30 to go. Kentucky is not pulling away to that 10-point advantage that would put it away, but they're still up 3. They have the advantage. Can Kentucky find a way to beat the number 1 team in the Kansas Jayhawks, or will the Jayhawks come back and stay number 1? 4:10 to go. Reed Shepherd with the ball. He's looking for anybody to give the ball to. Finally finds Trey Mitchell on the block. Down low. Trey Mitchell going up over Adams. His shot is off the mark, but they call a foul, and KJ Adams doesn't like it. He had his hands up, too. Bill Self doesn't like it. He just threw his hand out like that. He does not agree with the call. And I don't blame him to an extent because it was, to me, a clean defensive play. I think that KJ Adams went straight up. The Kansas fans are furious. Let's look at the play. Mitchell's going in the lane. Ooh, but he did get him a bit with the body. If he hadn't kind of stuck his body out a bit, he might have been okay. He went up with the hand straight, but I think that's a good call. 79-75, and 4 players for Kansas and 4 fouls. I don't know. It's close. It could have not been called. It could have been called. I don't know. Darrell obviously saying that's a foul for sure, benefiting Kentucky. I mean, I think it was, but it was close. 79-75, and Trey Mitchell splits the free throws. Kansas going back the other way. They need a bucket. 3:50 to go in the second. Adams with the ball. Over to DeJuan Harris. To McCullough. Back to Adams. Into Elmarco Jackson in the corner. His three's off the mark. Reeves with the board. Reeves is fouled. KJ Adams fouled him in the back on that rebound attempt. Bill Self. I don't know how much more Bill Self can take. He's getting mad. He's getting really mad. And that's the 5th foul. That is the 5th foul on KJ Adams. He's done. That is the first player that has fouled out in this game. And we could be seeing more because Kansas is in big foul trouble. And that's KJ Adams' 5th. And Bill Self, he knew it too. He knew it. And he's very upset with the refs. He's upset with KJ Adams. But it's a foul. I mean, he's going for the ball, which you can't blame a guy going for the ball. But in that situation, you got to let it go. He didn't have the advantage there. Kentucky was going to get the ball. But, I mean, the only good thing is you prevent him from going down the floor. But now they've got free throws. So, really, all in all, that's just a bad blow for Kansas. You're losing a veteran player to the bench because he's fouled out. And now you're giving up free throws. So Kentucky definitely in good shape if they just keep playing smart basketball down the stretch. But I really do appreciate all you guys for being here tonight. Like the stream down below. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. Share the stream out on social media. But most importantly, I appreciate all you guys for being here. This has been a fantastic game. Definitely probably do some more live streams in the future in the NBA and college basketball as the season goes on. Don't know when I'll be able to do it next. But this has been a great game. Had a feeling it was 2 blue bloods, 2 Hall of Fame coaches in Bill Self and John Calipari. And both these teams, they're as good, if not in Kentucky's case, more than good as advertised. They are really good. Kentucky is playing great basketball. Kansas, we expected to be fantastic, and they look the part. They do have some things they need to clean up, get better at not fouling. They got to get better at defending the three-point line. But Kentucky, they're just doing a really good job in general, of shooting the basketball, hitting their free throws, not turning it over. If you would have said one thing that I could have guaranteed, I would have thought Kansas would have turned the ball over less than Kentucky because Kentucky has the freshmen. Kansas has the experience. Kentucky, having all these new guys, they're going to turn it over more because this is their first big game. That has not been the case. They've taken care of the ball better than Kansas has. They have a few less turnovers. So that's another big difference in this game. Very crazy thing. And Kansas has missed some free throws last couple minutes. Everything has just been pointing toward Kentucky possibly being able to pull out this game. But there's still time left. There's still 3:46 to go in the second half. There's plenty of time still for Kentucky to blow this game and Kansas to win and stay number one. But there's also enough time, it's getting to that point in time. There's not a lot of time left for Kansas to come back. But it's only a 4-point game, but Reeves is at the line. If Reeves can hit both of these, it'll be up to a 6-point game. So we'll see what Reeves can do. He's a pretty good free throw shooter. Shot it well at Illinois State. He shot it pretty well at the line since he's been at Kentucky. Tonight, he's hit all 5, and he makes that all 6. Almost didn't go in, but it hit the front rim, backboard, and in. In the second free throw, it's good as well, and that's what you got to do. Clutch free throws. Got to make them. Kansas has not been making them lately. Kentucky is, and that's helped them expand the lead. 81-75. Kansas needs a bucket. They're 21-30 at the line. Kentucky's 21-28. DeJuan Harris to Dickinson, who's had a monster of a game. McCullough to DeJuan Harris for 3, and DeJuan Harris knocks down a wide-open triple. You can't leave him that wide open. And he's 4-4-3 in this game. Probably the best shooting game DeJuan Harris has ever had. He's got 18 points. He's only been averaging like 3 points this season. Hasn't really had to score, but he's doing great in this game. Reeves with the ball. Driving in the lane. Reeves for 2. Reeves has really exploded in the second half. He's got over 20 points. An unbelievable second half effort from him. He's got 24 points. Only 7-20 from the field, but he's playing really well. DeJuan Harris, top of the key for 3, and he hits another one. Kentucky's got to guard DeJuan Harris. He's got 21. 5 of 5 from 3. This game is going down the wire. 2:50 to go in the second. Adu Thero kicks over to Reeves. Reeves with the ball. Step back 3. His shot's off the mark, and I don't like that shot by Reeves. Can't do a step back 3 there. DeJuan Harris almost turned it over, but somehow was able to keep the ball, and then there's a foul on Kentucky. It almost looked like Kentucky accidentally fouled there because DeJuan Harris lost the basketball, but somehow got it back, and then they ran into him. But DeJuan Harris, in the last 60 seconds, has just hit 2 massive threes to give Kansas a shot still in this game. 83-81, and now DeJuan Harris is at the line. Can he be clutch there as well? Something his teammates haven't really been the last few minutes. He's got 22 points, a career high for him because he just hit the first free throw. Another free throw will knot us up at 83. And his second free throw is good. Forget what I said about Kentucky getting a 10-point lead because this game's going down the wire. It's going to be a photo finish. 83-83. 2:30 to go in the second half. Bill Self's back engaged. He's back on his feet, believing his team has a chance, and those Kansas fans are back on their feet. Everybody's on their feet in Chicago. DeJuan Harris with 23, tie game. Top of the key, Robert Dillingham. Over to Reeves, who's been hot lately. Back to Dillingham. Dillingham with a step back 2, and his shot's off the mark. I don't like that shot. You got to get a better look. Kentucky's taking some tough shots last couple minutes. McCullough, back to DeJuan Harris. We're at 2 minutes to go, and there's a foul. Trey Mitchell just fouled Hunter Dickinson. He doesn't like the call. Trey Mitchell has his hands out. He's talking to the ref, and he's got 4 fouls. He's like, what did I do? I mean, there's an argument to be made that he didn't do a lot, but he did run into him, and Dickinson sold the contact. And again, that's where the experience comes in of Hunter Dickinson. A very smart play. Hummus Hero, thanks for being here. He says, hello, Jeffrey and friend. I'm late on this game, but looks like I get to watch a great finish. For sure, Hummus Hero. The ending is always the best part, and I appreciate you for stopping by. And Dickinson hits them both. 25 points and 20 rebounds for Hunter Dickinson. Unbelievable by him. A 2020 performance, and the Jayhawks a few minutes ago didn't seem likely, but there's back in front. 85-83, and Reeves with a step-back 3. Why does Kentucky keep shooting these step-back 3s? I don't understand it. They should not be shooting these shots. Timothy Bates, thanks for stopping by. Says, dude, Dickinson has 20 boards. Dickinson's been a beast on the glass. I will say it does hurt that Kentucky doesn't have Aaron Bradshaw and Ugonna Yensu and Big Z. That hurts. But still, they got to do a better job to box out Dickinson. He's killing them on the glass. 85-83. 1:30 to go in the second. Wagner driving in the lane, and his shot is off the rim. And there's a foul. I think they're going to call a foul on Dickinson. He does not like the call, but Trey Mitchell got him back. Trey Mitchell fouled Dickinson. And then on the next play, Dickinson fouled Trey Mitchell. Both sold it well. Dickinson has 3 fouls. He's still arguing the call. Let's see the replay. Ooh, I don't know about that. That's a bad call. I don't know about that one. Did Dickinson, I mean, he might have got him a bit, but Mitchell got him 2 in the head. I mean, that's close. That is close. That is a tough call. DeReal got a hand on his head emoji for sure. Kentucky down 2. It's going to be a crazy finish. Timothy says, what an absolute slugfest college basketball is so back. 100%. This is why we love college basketball. Even when you've got 2 talented teams like this, it isn't always the prettiest basketball. It's not like the NBA where it's just threes and, behind the back dribbles and crazy plays. You get stuff like this, even with 2 teams that are very talented. A lot of youth out there for Kentucky, and they've played well. We've seen some mistakes last couple minutes. But we're going to see, are they reviewing this play? McCullough hit Trey Mitchell in the head. I didn't even see that. McCullough hit Trey Mitchell in the head, and then Trey Mitchell hit Hunter Dickinson in the head. So both of them got hit in the head. Both of them did. And they're big hits, too. This isn't slight hits. So I don't know what they're reviewing, like who could possibly get a technical foul. I think it was all incidental contact. I don't think Trey Mitchell meant to hit Dickinson. And I don't think McCullough meant to hit Mitchell. But both of them got hit pretty good. But they're both coming back in the game. So I think that everybody's all right. Timothy said, thoughts on St. John's potentially making a Final Four run? I'm hearing stirs them being a stellar team with Pitino as coach. They just lost to Michigan last night by like 18. So they had a rough performance. Phil Martelli was coaching, though. But I think they, have a shot to make the tournament. It would be tough to see them go that far unless the matchups were there. They have a good team because he got a lot of transfers, and Pitino a really good coach, and he, again, brought in some talent, but it's going to be tough. It's going to be pretty tough in that rugged Big East, and he's got a lot to do to gel that roster. But maybe by the end of the season, they'll look a lot better, and it could be possible. But I would say at least making the tournament would be good for them. Mitchell splits the free throws, so he is not able to hit them both. If he hit them both, it would have been tied, but it's 85-84, 1:20 to go in the second. DeJuan Harris with the ball, over to Kevin McCullough. McCullough kicks it to Dickinson, where Kansas has had a lot of success on the block. Dickinson down low, trying to make a move, and he scores again. 87-84, 3-point game, 1:05 to go in the second. Reed Shepherd with the basketball. Kicks to Reeves. Reeves is off the mark, but Adu Thero. Who else? He got the offensive board. Top of the key. Reed Shepherd has it. 50 seconds left. Down low. Mitchell to Reeves in the corner. Reeves three's off the mark, and Dickinson has another rebound. Dickinson has like 21 boards, 27 points, and 21 boards for Dickinson. What a ridiculous stat line. 35 seconds left in this game. If Kansas scores here, it's going to be hard for Kentucky to have a shot. They need a stop. And there's a timeout by the Hall of Famer Bill Self. He wants to draw up a play for possibly the game-winning score. There's 13 seconds left on the shot clock, so Kentucky's going to get this ball back with probably around 20 seconds left. But this is unbelievable. I mean, you see these Kansas fans cheering, but just 4 minutes ago, they looked like they were ready to leave. I mean, obviously they weren't going to leave yet because it's only like a 5-point game, but Kentucky had all the momentum, and they looked very upset. Like their team, they just felt that they couldn't get this win. And now they're all pumped up. They're all ready to go. They're all really excited. And you can't blame them because their team, it's looking like possibly Kansas is going to pull this out. But that shows you how quickly things can change in college basketball. We've seen a lot of lead changes. I've had about 6 moments in this game where I thought Kansas was by far in great shape to win. And then the same thing with Kentucky. And now it's back to Kansas. DeReal says it's not looking good. It definitely is not, DeReal. I hate it for you if Kentucky can't get the win, but they did not box out Dickinson. I know without the centers. I know without Bradshaw. It's tough. But Dickinson with 27 points, 21 boards, and the first Kansas player with 20-20 versus the top 25 since 03, Nick Collinson. That is a throwback. That's a long time ago. And McCullough with an underrated stat line of 12 points, 9 assists, and 10 boards. Kevin McCullough's had a good game. That's what he does. He's a good passer. He's a good defender. Kansas just has a lot of good players. In Kentucky, this is a game that even if they don't win, Calipari has a lot to take away from this. And I think a lot of college basketball fans are going to look at this game and think that Kentucky is good. They're really good, and they deserve a lot of praise, even if they aren't able to win. I know it stings to not win if Kentucky isn't able to win, but there's still time. This isn't over by any means. Kansas can miss, and then Kentucky can go out there and hit a three and win the game. So it's not over by a long shot. DeReal says Kentucky double Dickinson, he still scores. Sometimes when you're that good, sometimes when you have that much ability and you're that good from down low, from 2 feet out, sometimes you can double them and it's not going to matter. Everybody biting their nails, wondering what's going to happen in this game. Kentucky and Kansas fans, everyone on their feet. Bill Self trying to draw up a play. 30 seconds to go. DeJuan Harris trying to free himself. Dickinson with the screen. Kicks in the corner. 5 seconds on the shot clock. Good defense from Kentucky. DeJuan Harris has to heave it up, and the shot is no good. 18 seconds left in this game. What defense from the Wildcats? DeReal says there are no moral victories for Kentucky fans. I understand that, Drew. I get that. But still, when you barely lose, it is impressive, especially against the number one team. I know, though, you got to win, but still impressive. Still impressive performance by Kentucky. Sonny Verma, appreciate you for being here. Had a blast doing the show with you last week. Good win for Illinois, too, by the way, in football. It was a great game. A lot higher scoring than both of us thought, but good to see you, Jeffrey. Great job. Now, I appreciate you for being here. Means a lot seeing you stop by. Hummus Hero says, chance for Kentucky to tie with a 3. Definitely. If they can knock down a 3, we're going to overtime, which I'm not complaining. I would be happy to see that. Both these teams playing great basketball, to get 5 more minutes of it would be awesome. Even though DeReal wouldn't want to see it. He just wants Kentucky to win a regulation and be done with it. But at this point for Kentucky, the best they can probably hope for is overtime. Because if they're able to knock down a 3, it will be very hard for seeing them get the ball back in any way. Kansas would probably have the last shot if Kentucky scored like 4 seconds left. But they're reviewing something. I don't know if they're reviewing like the clock. It probably is the clock. Both teams are in their huddles, probably trying to draw up a last-minute play here to see if they can get their team, in the best position to be able to win this game. DeReal says, can I get a 4-point play? 4-point play is possible. Not likely, but possible. If Kansas could foul Reeves or Dillingham on a 3 and they knock it down, I mean, they've been hot, so you never know. If you're Bill Self, though, you got to tell your team just to play straight-up defense, and if they take the 3, you back off. If they shoot the 3, you cannot foul. No matter what, because even if they miss, you don't want to give them 3 free throws. So that's probably what Self is telling his team. Calipari, I mean, they could go for a 2. Kentucky could go for a 2 and then do the foul method after that. We'll see what they decide to do. 18 seconds left. 15 seconds left. You've got Dillingham with the ball. Kicks to Reeves. Over to Trey Mitchell. 10 seconds left. Reed Shepherd shoots a desperation 3, and it's an air ball. Terrible shot there. That was not the play they were looking for. Don't blame Reed Shepherd for taking the shot because he panicked and he's a young freshman, but that's a terrible shot. You've still got 9 seconds left, and you heave a 3. You heave a prayer, and it's not happening. Whatever Kentucky tried to run on that play, it didn't work. That was not a good play. Now Kentucky has to have Kansas miss 2 free throws. Sonny said, I think DeReal's Kansas minus 6.5 like I do. Definitely, when I predicted this game, I had Kansas winning 79-73. So I went actually under that. I had Kentucky covering with my official prediction. But it does like Kentucky might cover. as long as Kansas doesn't hit too many free throws. The real more hand-on-face emoji. I don't blame you. I mean, it stinks. If you're a Kentucky fan, you thought they had the game. They were leading for the majority of the second half. They were up by 12 at one point, and then they just let Kansas come back. Those 2 missed free throws from Trey Mitchell, though, were huge in the middle of that second half. When he missed 2 free throws, that really gave Kansas the confidence to get back in this game. But now, you have Kansas at the line. They've got a really young guy at the line. Can he hit the free throw? And it's good. It's good. It's 88-84, and that might be it. Bill Self feeling confident. Jackson says Calipari's looking pretty worried. I would definitely be worried if I am Calipari because I think Kentucky might be done. And Kansas hits the second free throw as well. It's 89-84, 5 seconds, and now you've got Kansas waving goodbye. Game over for Kentucky, says Jackson. Reeves for 3. The heave is almost good, but it does not fall, and that's the game. 89-84, Kentucky covered. So I got that right. Kentucky did cover somehow. They almost blew that by letting Kansas score too much at the end, but this was a great game. This is not a game that either team should be ashamed of, whoever would have won or lost. Both teams made mistakes. Kansas was a little turnover prone in this game. They got to clean that up. Kentucky, you can make an argument, lives and dies by the 3 a bit too much, but there was so much positive from both these teams. Kentucky played great basketball. They played hard. They played with fantastic effort all around. And for a lot of moments in this game, it looked like the Wildcats were going to beat the number 1 team in college basketball. And I know a lot of people say preseason rankings are meaningless. They don't mean anything. Kansas being ranked number 1, it makes sense. It absolutely makes sense. They got experience. They've got young freshman talent. They've got a lot of good players. So if Kentucky had to beat Kansas, they would have been beating a legitimate top team in college basketball. But Kentucky, they've got a lot of young freshmen, but they need to get Aaron Bradshaw and Ugano Yensu and Big Z healthy. If they can get those guys healthy, I do believe Kentucky could be a threat in the SEC this season, but they just could not stop Hunter Dickinson down low because they did not have their bigs. But I really appreciate everyone for being here. Like the stream down below. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. Share the stream out on social media. But most importantly, you guys were awesome. All you guys that were here tonight for this big game, I really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun. And there's going to be a lot more basketball games to come. A lot more big tournaments, matchups, and I'm definitely going to be looking forward to going live for some of those games. So stay tuned for more live streams of college basketball, probably NBA games as well. I'll be looking forward to that. But this game lived up to the billing. I thought this game would be fantastic. I was a little worried with Kentucky. Didn't know how they would look with their freshmen, but they overperformed my expectations. They actually did a great job. I thought it would be one of those games where Kansas was kind of big and then maybe Kentucky made it interesting late, which is why I had them only losing by 6. But they definitely overperformed expectations. They played fantastic. Kentucky is a good team. They just got to figure out, their health situation and when those guys come back, how their roster is going to look. But they got some more tune-up games that will help them out. Kansas obviously has some big tournament games coming up during Thanksgiving. So it's going to be awesome to see with them. But Kansas is really good. Dickinson played great basketball. And you see why he was the top transfer for a reason. You see why Bill Self wanted him. And you see why Hunter Dickinson wanted to be at Kansas. Because he was not going to be able to be on a top team at Michigan. Michigan was not built to win a national title or win a conference championship with, the roster they had. So Dickinson, he wanted to do this. He wants to win big games like this. He goes to Kansas, and they've got the roster. KJ Adams was really good last season for the Jayhawks. But you can tell having Hunter Dickinson makes them so much more dynamic than when they just had KJ Adams, who's undersized at like 6'7". And he's really good. I mean, KJ Adams is one of those guys that you just cannot, throw away and say, he's not, a guy that people should pay attention to. He's not a great player. He's really good. I mean, he had like 16 points tonight, but he's not a guy you want manning the paint. Dickinson's a guy you want manning the paint, and he can shoot threes, and he's a really good free throw shooter. He's a guy, even though he is a bit more on the slower side, he has potential to be in the NBA. He really does. Darrell says, why does Kentucky struggle against Kansas? I mean, they didn't struggle in this game, and I know what you mean, not getting, the wins. I understand for sure. It does stink for Kentucky fans. Jackson said, if you love watching amazing hot takes from the one, the only Jeffrey, like, comment, and subscribe to Only Talk Sports. Appreciate that, Jackson. Again, subscribe to the channel if you guys are new, but appreciate you for being here. Always means a lot of fun for sure. Darrell says, congrats to Kansas. I hope Kentucky gets to see them again, and they could. Maybe in the tournament. You never know. I think both these teams have a bright future this season. You see the other game on screen here, Creighton. Looks like Creighton is going to pull it out against Iowa. I'll stay live until that game goes final just to make sure Creighton does win, because that is a big game in the Gavitt games. But Creighton, the number 18 in college basketball, now up by 7 versus the Hawkeyes in the Big Ten. Looks like they should hold on there, but that game may be a bit closer than some people expected. Jackson says, I hope Dickinson gets his draft stock higher after the season. I hope he does too, because he played well. And I know it's hard, when you're an older guy, because, the NBA usually takes freshmen and sophomores more, and he is on the older side. But, and he is, a bit slower too. A lot of bigs, they want to be super quick, but he does seem quicker. And now that he's added the three-point element to his game, he's a great free throw shooter, and he's just such a hard-nosed player. He plays so hard and gives it all he has. I think that will boost his stock for sure. Darrell says, where does Kentucky go from here? I mean, if you're talking about, with roster, I mean, like I said, definitely you need Aaron Bradshaw back, and you need Ugonna Yensu. They need to get healthy so they can bring those centers back, and then they'll have a different roster out there probably. I wonder if Trey Mitchell will be playing as much. Not that he played bad, but I do think Aaron Bradshaw will eat into some of his minutes. But if you're just talking about, in general from, the way they looked, I think Kentucky's going to be fine. I think they're going to be really good. I don't know how good. I don't know if they're going to be possibly the best team in the SEC, but we've seen a lot from, some teams early on in the season. And Kentucky, I mean, this is one of the best losses of, that you could possibly have. When you lose a game, it's always tough. But to lose like this against a team like Kansas is not a bad loss at all. They played really well. Way better than I expected. Shooting the ball way better than I expected. Dude, Thero is way better than I expected. He's unbelievable. His jump from last year to this year is insane. I mean, the guy only averaged 1 point a game last year, and he's out there scoring 17 and 13. I mean, Kansas, they had a lot of guys scoring in their own right. You had basically almost a triple-double from Kevin McCullough, and then you had KJ Adams with double digits. Hunter Dickinson obviously had the 2020 game. It was unbelievable. First against a top 25 team since 2003 for Kansas. So that's been a long time. So, I mean, there was a lot of guys for the Jayhawks that played well, but then Robert Dillingham had a great first half. Antonio Reeves had a great second half for Kentucky. And then you talk about Dude Thero. So both teams had good, performances from a lot of guys. Reed Sheppard played well. Reed Sheppard on the big stage had a really good game. That was impressive for sure as well. Jackson says Creighton is definitely a team to watch for. How about Marquette tonight? They were awesome. Yeah, Marquette getting that win at Illinois. Illinois is a really good team. And, they're not a great team, but they're a really good team. They're a solid team with some NBA-like talent. And I think they will be a top 5 team in the Big Ten. And playing at Illinois is always tough. But Marquette to go in there and win, that's a huge win. They'll look good on their resume. And as long as Illinois ends up being as good as I think, like a top 4 team in the Big Ten, top 5 team, that will be a big resume win for Marquette. And Shaka Smart's done a great job there. And Tyler Kolek is a fantastic guard. Brian Brown, thanks for stopping by. So the game is different if we had at least one big. 100%. You are right. Aaron Bradshaw might have just been enough because he would have been able to slow down Dixon a bit. Darrell says, can Kentucky beat North Carolina? If Kentucky plays the way that they played tonight against Kansas, against North Carolina, yes, they can beat North Carolina. But if Kentucky plays worse than they did tonight against North Carolina, they could lose. It's all about how Kentucky plays. Kentucky played a great game. One of the best performances that you could possibly play in a loss. But if they do play like this, they can beat North Carolina. Because North Carolina, I don't think, is as good as Kansas. At least right now, anyway. Carolina definitely has a lot of things to still improve on. Brian Brown says Reeves lost the game with back-to-back three-pointer. Yeah, he got hot, and sometimes that's an issue when you start feeling it and you think you can hit everything because he had a good second half, but his field goal percentage was poor. That is the one knock because he did have 24 points, but he was 7 of 23 from the field, which is not good. So even though it was awesome to see him have a good performance in the second half and he was knocking down shots, it also, to your point, Brian, kind of ruined their chances to win as well. Because once he started missing, those were key possessions that Kentucky was not getting points on, and that helped Kansas pull away just ever so slightly enough to win. Yeah, those back-to-back misses were huge, but that was just a byproduct of the fact that Kentucky felt they really couldn't get inside that much with Dickinson down there, and they didn't have Bradshaw. So maybe with Bradshaw, it might have been different, but we'll never know now, unfortunately. DeReal says Kentucky should have won. There's no reason to blow a 14-point lead. Yeah, those 2 missed free throws for Mitchell, and then their shot stopped falling there for a second. That's what brought Kansas back. And Kansas is such a good team that they can come back in a hurry. And then Kentucky, had a little flurry there again to get up 79-75. But, yeah, it's just Kentucky, their shots stopped falling at the rate they were. That was a big reason. Brian Brown says also lack of ball movement, and he agrees with MVP 100%. I think that's one of the biggest things Kentucky does have to work on is they have to pass a little bit better. They played opportunistic. I mean, there were a lot of plays that I was like, how did this work? Like, they were squeezing in tight passes. They were threading the needle. And a lot of times it did work because these guys are talented. I mean, a lot of these guys are going to be playing on, TNT and ESPN and the NBA. They're going to be playing in the big leagues. They're all 5-stars, most of them for Kentucky. They're smart, talented players, but they're young. And sometimes those smarts don't look too smart when you're a young freshman only in their 3rd collegiate basketball game playing the top team in the sport on national television. And sometimes you make mistakes. These guys are going to get better. And once, their basketball smarts that they have, become in peak form later in the year, Kentucky could become dangerous. And these guys are probably going to be really good in the NBA as well. A lot of them, like Dillingham. I mean, Justin Edwards had like 1 point. That's the other thing. If Justin Edwards had a good game, Kentucky could have won as well. But guys like Robert Dillingham, and some of the other dudes, they're really good. And I think that they're going to have a lot of success, possibly in the NBA. And you look at a team like Duke. Caleb Foster had a good game. He's a freshman. He had a good game. Filipowski played well. They were able to beat Michigan State because they just did not have a lot going around Tyson Walker. You just need more guys to play well. And that wasn't an issue for Kentucky or Kansas. Both teams had a lot of guys playing well, but you just needed more for maybe Justin Edwards. You needed possibly better shot selection late by Antonio Reeves. Antonio Reeves is a really good player. He's an older guy. Maybe isn't on any NBA draft radars, but he's good. So both teams played great. It was a very fun basketball game for sure. Creighton, they were able to beat Iowa in the Gavitt Games. Gavitt Games is a fun tournament between the Big East and the Big Ten, and definitely it looks like they're going to keep that tournament going because of the fact that you do see that the Big Ten AC Challenge is gone. So now the Big Ten Big East, the Gavitt Games are probably going to continue, but those are fun games. They don't probably get as much notoriety as the Champions Classic or the Empire Class, some of these bigger ESPN events, but still definitely fun games for sure. That's a big win for Marquette over Illinois, a big win for Creighton over Iowa. Bronze is still excited to see how they played against the top team with their youth. They play like grown men. For sure. I mean, they played like they belong. They played like they're ready already for the pros in a way, even though they still have things to work on. They probably aren't absolutely ready for the pros, some of them, but they played hard. And playing against the top team, like the Kansas Jayhawks, with experience, guys like Kevin McCullough, Hunter Dickinson, KJ Adams, DeJuan Harris, all these guys have years of college basketball experience. Whereas these Kentucky players, 5-star freshmen, that are going to be really good, this is only their 3rd collegiate game. And they're playing the number 1 team. That's possibly the best team in college basketball from top to bottom with their roster. Very difficult. And I would have expected Kentucky to struggle a lot more than this. I would have expected them to turn the ball over a lot more. And it's very encouraging that Kentucky's shooting the ball well. Because like DeReal said, Kentucky has struggled to shoot the basketball for the last few seasons. They have not been as good of a three-point shooting team since the Jamal Murray, Malik Monk years. Since then, they've had some rough, years shooting three. And this year, at least in this game, they were knocking down threes at a pretty high rate. Maybe percentage-wise wasn't too great, but you can get away with shooting 35, 36, 37 threes as long as you hit 11, 12 of them, because that's 36 points. 12 times 3 is 36, and that's a lot more than twos. And you have to make up for it at the free throw line, which Kentucky also got to the line a lot because with the athleticism of their guys, they're able to cash in at the free throw line. And that's a big difference as well. Being able, when you are a good three-point shooting team, to also get to the line. Kansas ultimately did a little bit more at the line because of Dickinson, but there was not a big discrepancy at the line between both teams. And that's what kept it close. And I just think overall, if Kentucky, like you said, made better shot selection, which from a guy like Reeves, it is frustrating because he is a senior. He's a guy that's older and he took those bad shots. But you could also look at him thinking, well, I got to take over because I'm the veteran. I got to, pull out the win for us. So it's just a weird dynamic. It's kind of hard to blame him in a way, but you still would like to have seen him take better shots. Josh, the Go Animator 3142. Appreciate you for stopping by. Says, I'm just glad it's the start of the season. Just going to have growing pains right now. For sure. I mean, we've seen poor performances from a lot of teams. You can look at Michigan State. I mean, they lost to James Madison, who's now ranked in the AP Top 25 poll. The Dukes getting some love in college basketball. They should be getting love in college football for being undefeated, but obviously can't play in a bowl because they're just transitioning over to the FBS. Think they should be able to play in a bowl. But yeah, James Madison beat Michigan State, and Michigan State was ranked number 4. And now they lose to Duke, so they're 1-2. People were like, is Michigan State bad now? Are they not a good team? And I think that overall with Michigan State, Tom Izzo is like the perfect coach to have for this, because even though usually Tom Izzo teams don't lose to James Madison, they have lost a lot of early season games because they play a tough schedule, and they've gone like 4-5 before. And then after that, they turn it around. They're winning a lot of Big Ten games. And then they make it, a deep run in the tournament. I mean, Michigan State's made more deep runs in the tournament than any other Big Ten team. More than Indiana, more than Illinois, more than Iowa, all those teams. So sometimes losing early is a good thing. And especially in Kentucky's case, when you're losing to a team that's not going to, be a bad loss. You talk about quad, 1 wins and losses and everything. I mean, that loss is about the best loss that you could possibly have. It's not going to affect you at all. Like I've seen teams like Alabama get in the tournament like 18-15 that year. They had Colin Sexton because they had like 5 quad 1 wins, and they had like 13 quad 1 losses, and they had like no bad losses and everything. And they had like 12 quad 1 and quad 2 wins, and they got in. So sometimes it's just more about your resume. Obviously, I believe Kentucky's not going to be a bubble team. They're too good for that as long as they can get healthy, stay healthy, and, keep growing and getting better. But yeah, this is not a bad loss at all. And to lose a game like this, it's not a bad thing. I mean, there's so many teaching moments. John Calipari can look at the film and say, Reeves, you shouldn't have done this. Reed Shepherd, you shouldn't have made that bad pass, with 4 minutes to go in the game. And that's a teaching moment for a young guy that played well. It's a lot better to teach a guy, his mistakes when overall he played well versus trying to teach a guy's mistakes when everything he does out there is mistakes. If everything he does out there is mistakes and he's almost an unplayable player, even if he's talented, and the coach is like, well, you messed up here, yeah, it's not good. But if you have a guy like Reed Shepherd, who, again, made a very bad pass with 4 minutes to go in the second half, a key play that kind of swung the pendulum back in the favor of Kansas. But it's hard to be really upset at him when he had a good game, and he's a big reason Kentucky was even in the game. He had a big layup in the second half, had a couple big threes in the first half that got Kentucky back in the game when Kansas was up. So, again, there's a lot to like. There is a lot to like from this game. And there were mistakes, but every team's going to have mistakes. I mean, Kentucky could have 5 seniors, and, they're all guys that, some of the top players in college basketball, and you're still going to have mistakes. All teams make mistakes. So I just feel like for Kentucky to be this young of a team and have, a lot of growing to do, they still have a lot of work to do. But with this talent of a team and this young of a team, and only having Trey Mitchell and Antonio Reeves as basically experienced, because even Adu Thero did not play last year, this is about the best performance you could have asked for. And really, the only way Kentucky would have won this game is if they kept hitting shots and Kansas played worse. Kansas just got it together. I thought Kansas was going to fold, but it's Bill Self, and he's got a really talented and experienced team, and they pulled out a win. But, I mean, this was a game between two teams that are going to be great this year. Kentucky has the talent with the freshmen. Kansas is more of the experience. Both these teams are going to be really good in their respective conferences. And I will say my biggest takeaway from this game is that I was very impressed with Kentucky, and they overexceeded my expectations. They did better than I expected them to do. Kansas, to me, at first did worse than I expected them to do, but then they got it together, which is why they won. But Kansas was sloppy in the first half, especially late in that first half, which just helped Kentucky get the halftime lead. They were very sloppy, but that big three from Dickinson to cut it to 7.5, and then in the second half, he played really well. All those rebounds, Kentucky didn't have Aaron Bradshaw. It made the difference, but Kansas is a great team. Kentucky's a great team. I think they're both ahead of Duke and Michigan State right now. Obviously, Duke could get way better, and they played well. But I do believe that looking at Kentucky and Kansas, they are ahead of Duke, and they are ahead of Michigan State, especially Michigan State. They got a lot of work to do, but it's going to be interesting, and it's only game 3. There are so many games left, so many big tournaments, conference games. It's going to be a blast. Can't wait for it, and I'll definitely be live streaming more games for sure. Studman, thanks for being here. Said this was a winnable game. 100% agree. It was a winnable game. When you barely lose any game, you lose by 3, 4, 5 points, it's always a winnable game. You definitely could have won. And, both teams should be upset they lost because of how hard they played. If Kansas fell short, they should be upset because they played well. If Kentucky losing, Calipari's probably telling them, you guys played great. Again, things to work on, made some mistakes why you didn't win. But definitely it was a winnable game for both teams because that's how good that they are. And that's why they arranged the Champions Classic, because teams like Kentucky, Duke, Kansas, and Michigan State are good almost every year. That's why they put these teams in the event. So it's a great event. It's definitely a lot of fun for sure. And I had a blast watching this game. And I really appreciate all you guys for being here. Josh says I agree with you 100%. Really appreciate that. But thank you guys all so much for being here. Like the stream down below. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. Share the stream out on social media. But again, I thank you all so much for being here. This was a fantastic game. And I cannot wait for more college basketball. I will be live streaming more games in the future. Stay tuned for that. It should be a blast. Don't know when I will be live again, but I definitely will be live soon for either the NBA or college basketball. Hummus says, thanks, Jeffrey. Good night, everyone. Appreciate you again for stopping by, Hummus. It was a lot of fun. I hate it for all you Kentucky fans. You didn't get the win, but I was very impressed with the Wildcats. Took away a lot of great things from this game, and I think they have a bright future for the rest of the season. Great win for Kansas and the #1 team that they're going to stay #1 for now. Big win over Kentucky. It was a fantastic game. Definitely both these teams look better than Duke, Michigan State in the first game, like I said. But both teams played great. Somebody had to lose, and unfortunately, it had to be for Kentucky fans, the Wildcats. But again, it was a lot of fun. But I really appreciate all you guys for being here. Thanks for being here. It was a lot of fun, and what a great win.